Chapter 188. The islands in the Chess Sea were small at first, only about the size of a square. However, as time passed and the islands were attached to each other, they would grow larger and larger. The larger the island was, the stronger the enemy might be, and the greater the number of enemies. This was because in the repeated elimination of the island, the weaker side or the side with fewer people had already been killed. Of course, there were exceptions. For example, Lu Yi and Hua Ci, who were both sixth order, occupied a large island. As the two islands approached each other rapidly, Lu Yi noticed some abnormalities on the other side. Someone seemed to be fighting on the opposite island. From time to time, the light of spells would light up from there. As they got closer and closer, the sounds of battle became more and more obvious. If there was a battle, it meant that there were not only Myriad Demons Ridge but also Grand Heaven Alliance on the other side. However, he did not know what the situation was like. The other side was in full swing and obviously did not notice that the two islands were approaching each other. Perhaps he could take advantage of this. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and said to Hua Ci, "I'll go and take a look. You stay here. Be careful." Lu Yi urged his spirit energy and a pair of wings with fire spirit energy appeared on his back. He turned into a stream of light and flew toward the island in front of him. As soon as he flew out of the island and came to the surface of the sea, Lu Yi felt that the spiritual energy in his body was flowing out like a flood from a broken dam. The level of consumption was not much lower than that of maintaining a defensive spiritual tattoo of the same height. He was secretly shocked. Sure enough, he could not fly casually in the Chess Sea. Or rather, he could not fly on the sea. The consumption was too great. He did not know the reason. Fortunately, the two islands were not far away. After a few breaths, Lu Yi landed on the opposite island. He folded his wings and tried his best to suppress the flow of spirit energy in his body as he flew toward the battle. He did not have much time. The two islands were about to collide. At that time, the people here would definitely be alerted. Fortunately, the size of the island was not very big. After a while, Lu Yi arrived at the periphery of the battlefield. Looking around, he saw 5 Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators besieging 2 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators. There were 3 corpses lying on the ground. It was obvious that the battle was fierce. Among the 5 Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators, 2 were Dharma cultivators, 1 was Physique cultivator, 1 was Weapon cultivator, and 1 was suspected to be a Ghost cultivator. The 2 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, were covered in blood and wounds. It seemed that they would not be able to hold on for long. After all, it was 2 against 5, so they were definitely no match for them. They were able to survive until now because the male cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance was an individual cultivator. His body was tall and sturdy like an iron tower. His vitality was vigorous, and he was extremely resistant to beatings. He held a spirit artifact shield in his hand and blocked many attacks. The second reason was that the Myriad Demons Ridge was confident in their victory, so they didn't want to take too many risks. If they really forced the other party into a corner, the other party might have the means to perish together with them. At first, they didn't fight 5 against 2, but 6 against 4. After successfully killing one of them, one of his companions acted too hastily and ended up perishing together with a cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance. In the current situation, they only needed to trap the 2 and break the weapon cultivator's shield. Then they would have no chance to resist. The 3 cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge gathered around the man and woman, constantly harassing them. The 2 Dharma cultivators stood a little further away. Under the premise that they wouldn't accidentally injure their companions, they constantly cast spells and bombarded the spirit artifact shield. The spirit light on the shield was extremely dim and could be annihilated at any time. Under such circumstances, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for the 2 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators to escape. Looking at their expressions, they clearly wanted to die. They didn't want to beg for mercy because they knew that it was useless. They would only be humiliated even more. Especially for female cultivators, if they fell into the enemy's hands, it would be a fate worse than death. They were now waiting for an opportunity, a chance to perish together with the enemy. The opportunity came instantly. With a boom, The earth shook and the mountains shook. The two islands collided and everyone lost their footing. The myriad demons' ridge cultivators' expressions changed. They had encountered the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators more than an hour ago, so they didn't expect to encounter another island so soon. "Be careful!" one of them shouted. The moment the two islands collided, two Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators rushed towards the soldier cultivator. The body cultivator roared and waved his shield to protect the slim figure beside him. The determination and viciousness in their eyes made the soldier cultivator who was targeted panic for a moment. Ah! The scream didn't come from the targeted weapon cultivator but from another direction. Everyone was shocked. A few myriad demons' ridge cultivators looked in the direction of the voice and saw the tip of a blade protruding from the chest of a spell cultivator standing at the periphery of the battlefield. Behind the spell cultivator, there was a vague figure standing there unknowingly. How did they come so quickly? They were all shocked. When the islands collided, they realized that someone else might come. If it was the myriad demons' ridge cultivators, it would be great. However, if it was the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators, there would be a change in the situation. What they didn't expect was that the moment the islands collided, one of their Dharma cultivators was killed. Could it be that the other party had been hiding nearby? They didn't have time to think as the battle had begun. The two Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators had already rushed to the weapon cultivator from Myriad Demon's Ridge. They didn't care about anything and were determined to drag him down with them. They almost succeeded. It was a pity that the two of them were severely injured. The targeted weapon cultivator was supported by the body cultivator from Myriad Demon's Ridge. The four of them immediately engaged in battle. The ghost cultivator from Myriad Demon's Ridge didn't stay idle either. His aura suddenly became erratic and he charged into the battle from the side. For a moment, the two Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were surrounded by danger. At the same time, after Lu Yi finished off one of the Dharma cultivators, he exerted force in his legs and ran toward the second Dharma cultivator. At the same time he shouted, "Hold on!" Hearing the voice, the body cultivator with the big shield didn't react. However, the female Dharma cultivator with the two short swords was shocked because she felt that the voice was a little familiar. However, she didn't have time to check the identity of the person at the moment. Purple veins had already crept up her fair neck. Even her eyes had turned purple. The purple veins were still creeping up, making her look both demonic and beautiful. Ghost cultivators were good at attacking and killing. This kind of head-on confrontation wasn't her strong suit. However, she had no other choice but to activate her strength with all her might. On the other side, Lu Yi moved nimbly and avoided the Dharma cultivator's attacks. As the distance between them shortened rapidly, the Dharma cultivator's eyes revealed traces of fear. He had never seen a weapon cultivator with such nimble movements. Lu Yi easily dodged every one of his Dharma cultivators. Seeing that Lu Yi was about to pounce on him, the Dharma cultivator clenched his teeth. Spiritual energy surged from his body and a powerful repulsive force swept out in all directions. Lu Yi staggered from the impact. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Dharma cultivator hurriedly closed in on the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. However, he had only taken a few steps when a scorching aura attacked him from the side. He turned his head and saw a large flaming bird flapping its wings. He hurriedly waved his hand and a spiritual energy barrier appeared in front of him. With a boom, the flaming bird slammed into the barrier. His spiritual energy exploded, and the impact caused his body to sway. Amidst the chaotic spiritual energy, Lu Yi brazenly charged forward with his saber. He raised his mountain saber and a fiery red saber light flashed. A forearm flew out and the Dharma cultivator's long saber pierced through his body. Amidst the Dharma cultivator's miserable screams, several bloody holes appeared on his body. Boom! Before the Dharma cultivator died, his Dharma cultivator's Dharma cultivator technique landed on Lu Ye's chest. However, it was blocked by the defensive spiritual inscriptions. The huge impact caused Lu Yi to fly out and fall to the ground. He hurriedly got up and looked over. The Dharma cultivator was already kneeling on the ground. A red light floated over from there. Lu Yi tilted his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He had long since sworn that if he saw any Dharma cultivator he didn't like in the future, he would kill them first. Without any delay, he rushed towards the two Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators to support them without stopping. Perhaps Lu Ye's arrival gave them hope of survival, or perhaps their plan to perish together with their enemies had been foiled. At this moment, the man and woman were fighting as they retreated, drawing closer to Lu Ye's side. However, their injuries were too severe and they were fighting 2 against 3. It was obvious that they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Along the way, they left bloody footprints. The attacks of the 3 myriad Devil Ridge cultivators became increasingly fierce. It wasn't until Lu Yi joined the battle that the situation stabilized. At this moment, the female cultivator finally knew who the newcomers were. She had complicated feelings. She never thought that they would meet again here. "Let's go!" Lu Yi shouted as he waved his mountain saber to block an attack. Even with his addition, the situation was still at a disadvantage. If they continued fighting like this, Lu Yi wasn't afraid, but the 2 of them would definitely die. The female cultivator and the body cultivator were still hesitating. Lu Yi shouted again, "Let's go!" The 2 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators didn't hesitate anymore. They immediately turned around and fled. The pressure on Lu Yi increased sharply. Fighting 3 enemies alone, all of whom were 7th order at that, was something even he couldn't resist. A defensive spiritual rune the size of a table appeared in front of Lu Yi. As Lu Ye's spiritual power was rapidly depleted, the attacks of the 3 people in front of him continued to land, causing cracks to appear all over the defensive spiritual rune. However, with the activation of spiritual power, the defensive spiritual rune was repaired, and the cycle repeated itself. After 3 breaths of time, Lu Yi couldn't hold on any longer. He felt his 5 viscera and 6 bowels trembling. The taste of blood filled his throat. As he removed the spirit rune, he swung his saber and forced the 3 cultivators to retreat. Then he turned around and ran. By the time the 3 from the myriad Devil Ridge looked up again, Lu Yi had already run 10 feet away. They were shocked at how fast this kid was. The 3 of them simultaneously activated their Tao of weapon manipulation, and the 3 spirit weapons turned into streams of light that shot towards Lu Yi. Feeling the murderous intent behind him, Lu Yi soared into the sky without thinking. The fiery red wings on his back spread open. He didn't activate the spirit rune because he felt that he couldn't block it. Even if he couldn't block it, the huge impact would instantly injure him. Chapter 189. Madame Yun's flying wing tattoo on Lu Ye's back was of great help. Seeing Lu Yi soar into the sky, the 3 myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were stunned. They didn't expect Lu Yi to have such an ability. For a moment, Lu Yi, who was in the form of a red light, flew in front, while 3 different colored lights flashed behind him, leaving behind long streaks of light. Tattoo wasn't something every low-level cultivator could have. In the entire 9 provinces, there weren't many spirit tattoo masters, and those who could tattoo low-level cultivators were even fewer. It could be said that there were no more than 20 spirit tattoo masters in the entire 9 provinces cultivation world. Madame Yun was one of them. If it weren't for the sect master's face, she wouldn't have taken action so easily. Lu Yi flew a few dozen meters before the sense of danger behind him slowly dissipated. Looking back, the cultivator's spirit artifacts had been taken back. Obviously, Lu Yi had escaped from their attack range. There was a limit to how far a spirit artifact could kill an enemy. For these 7th order cultivators, 300 meters was the furthest they could go. Any further and their connection with their spirit artifacts would be cut off. Seeing Lu Yi escape, the 3 looked at each other and didn't know whether they should give chase or not. Lu Yi had killed 2 of their Dharma cultivators in a row just now, and his cultivation was exposed in front of them. He was just a 6th order cultivator, and the other 2 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were also seriously injured. It could be said that the best choice now was to give chase and not give the enemy a chance to breathe. However, the opposite island was someone else's territory. It wasn't a good idea to give chase rashly. What if someone set a trap there? Not to mention anything else, as long as a few Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were lying in ambush there, they would be in trouble. After a moment of hesitation, the three had a simple discussion and decided to have the ghost cultivator sneak in to investigate the situation. Among the 6 cultivation systems, ghost cultivators were the best at sneaking in and killing. However, because the cultivators Lu Yi encountered so far weren't high in cultivation, even if he encountered some ghost cultivators, their characteristics weren't obvious. When their cultivation wasn't high, ghost cultivators didn't look much different from weapon cultivators. Only when their cultivation was high enough would the advantages of ghost cultivators be slowly revealed. However, as everyone knew, ghost cultivators ran the fastest, so the responsibility of investigating the enemy's situation fell on the ghost cultivator. Even if he wasn't willing, he didn't have a better way to deal with it at the moment. Under the cover of his 2 companions, the ghost cultivator successfully sneaked into the island of Lu Ye's group. After investigating from a distance, he quickly brought back good news and bad news. The good news was that there was indeed another person there, but that person was also only a 6th-order cultivator. At the moment, he was treating the 2 injured Heaven Alliance cultivators. Hearing this, the body cultivator and weapon cultivator were both stunned. They really couldn't figure out which sex guardian and vice envoy were from. Both of them were 6th-order cultivators, but there was also a medical cultivator among them. It must be known that even if medical cultivators could cultivate in other schools, they would have to spend a large amount of time studying medical techniques. Therefore, medical cultivators were the weakest among cultivators of the same level. The S of sect and of atheists, dies B's, S's cultivator, wait for their own people to be chopped into a dozen pieces and sewn up. Therefore, the 3 from the Myriad Devil Ridge could not figure out which destitute sect this was. How could there be such a surprising operation? However, they knew that they couldn't wait any longer. The other party had a medical cultivator. Once the 2 heavily injured cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance were treated, they would recover their combat strength. By then, they would be fighting against 4 cultivators at the same time. They had to act as soon as possible. They couldn't give the 2 time to recover. After making up their mind, the 3 from Myriad Demon Ridge immediately set off for the opposite island. At the same time, they discussed letting the ghost cultivator entangle Lu Yi. They had a deep understanding of Lu Ye's methods. They knew that they couldn't treat him as an ordinary 6th-order cultivator. They didn't expect the ghost cultivator to kill Lu Yi. As long as they could delay him, they would be able to deal with the 3 from Heaven Alliance. Then, even if Lu Yi could fly, he wouldn't be able to escape death. At the same time, Hua Si, who was treating the 2 Heaven Alliance cultivators, looked up and glanced at Lu Yi. Lu Yi understood tacitly. "Are they here?" The body cultivator asked. "They're here." The body cultivator stood up with difficulty and carried his big shield spirit artifact. He sighed in his heart. In the end, he couldn't escape this disaster. He smiled at Lu Yi. "I've implicated you. I'll try my best to stop them." The female cultivator also stood up with 2 short sabers in her hands. Although they were treated by Hua Si, the time was too short. All Hua Si could do was stop their bleeding. The female cultivator seemed to want to say something to Lu Yi, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Lu Yi slowly pulled out the long saber at his waist and said lightly, "Don't fight them. If they dare to come, this will be their burial ground." The body cultivator and the female cultivator were surprised. They didn't know where he got his confidence from. Although they had 4 people on their side, their chances of winning weren't high. "My family's medical cultivator is very scary." After saying that, Lu Yi clenched the mountain saber in his hand. In his field of vision, the 3 people from the Myriad Devil Ridge had already rushed over. Before they arrived, 3 streams of light had already flown over. The burly body cultivator shouted and stood in front of everyone. He stuck the spirit artifact shield in his hand on the ground and activated his spirit artifact. A thick barrier immediately appeared on the spirit artifact shield, blocking all 4 of them behind. Clanging sounds were heard. Every sound made the body cultivator's body tremble slightly. However, he stood still as if his feet were rooted to the ground. With the enemy's attack, the barrier of the spirit artifact shield began to shatter. However, Lu Yi and the female cultivator had already rushed out. One of the two short sabers in the female cultivator's hand flew out. She also used the spirit artifact Dao to attack her opponent, forcing the weapon cultivator from the Myriad Devil Ridge to activate his own spirit artifact to block. At the same time, Lu Yi also activated a spell to attack the ghost cultivator. The scene was very lively for a moment, and spirit artifact waves rose and fell one after another. Hiding behind the spirit artifact shield, Hua Ci slowly raised her hand and activated her spirit artifact to form a seal. In the next moment, the expressions of the three people from the Myriad Devil Ridge suddenly changed. The spirit artifact chi in their bodies suddenly became obscure and sluggish. This caused their strength to plummet, and the power of their attacks weakened significantly. Not only that, but the three of them felt as if something had drilled out of their 7 orifices, making it difficult for them to breathe and blocking their vision. As those things grew, their spirit artifact chi rapidly drained away. This scared the three of them quite a bit. Lu Yi had already rushed in front of the ghost cultivator. The saber in his hand slashed down and blood splattered. After 30 breaths of time, the battle ended as the body cultivator's spirit artifact shield smashed the body cultivator's head. Lu Yi sheathed his saber and Hua Ci's expression was calm. Only the body cultivator and the female cultivator looked at her with complicated expressions. Lu Yi had said that her family's medical cultivator was terrifying, but they didn't think too much about it. They only thought that how terrifying could a medical cultivator be? The world's understanding of medical cultivators had always been to save the dying and heal the injured. It was only at this moment that they understood that medical cultivators were truly terrifying. They didn't even see what had happened. They only knew that many small mushrooms had suddenly grown out of the three people from the Myriad Devil Ridge while they were rushing over. Immediately after, their strength plummeted. Then, the three of them dealt with the three of them as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. They had never heard of such a strange method in this world. Their respective sects also had some medical cultivators, but none of them could be compared to the one beside them. The two of them faintly felt that this gentle female medical cultivator had probably obtained some fortuitous encounter or inheritance. Otherwise, there was no way she could have such terrifying abilities. "Heal your wounds," Lu Yi said and began to clean up the battlefield. Hua Ci looked at the two of them and asked softly, "Who's going first?" The body cultivator and the female cultivator looked at each other and said in unison, "Him." As if sensing something, Hua Ci smiled sweetly. "Don't worry, I won't plant mushrooms on your bodies." The body cultivator scratched his head awkwardly. "Junior Martial Sister Lan, you go first. I can still hold on." While the three of them were healing their wounds, Lu Yi picked up the storage bags and spiritual tools on the ground. Then, he dragged the 3 corpses to the seaside and threw them into the sea. After that, he ran to another small island and cleaned up the things of the people he had killed before. He did the same to the corpses. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Lu Yi returned with a strange expression and something in his hand. "Junior Martial Brother Yi." The female cultivator had finished healing her wounds and was no longer in a serious condition. However, she still needed some time to recover. "Senior Martial Sister Lan." Lu Yi looked at her with a smile. "We meet again." Although he had saved her before, he was pressed for time and didn't have time to catch up. This female cultivator was Lan Yudi from the Purple Cloud Mountain. More than 2 months ago, when Lu Ye's identity was exposed and countless cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge wanted to kill him, it was Lan Yudi who led the people from the Purple Cloud Mountain to find Lu Yi first. During that period of escape, Lu Yi had received the protection of many people, but the one who left the deepest impression on him was Lan Yudi. Firstly, she was the first to find him. Secondly, the two of them had spent the longest time together. Sometimes, the people who protected Lu Yi were forced to fight the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge as soon as they came into contact with Lu Yi. In the end, when he separated from Lan Yudi, she and some people from the Big Dipper sect were besieged by the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. However, Lu Yi took the initiative to expose his whereabouts and drew away many of the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. After that, he sent a message to Lan Yudi and confirmed her safety. However, Lu Yi didn't expect to meet her during the battle at Lingxi. Since she was here, it meant that she was either a guardian or a deputy guardian. Many thanks for saving my life, junior martial brother, Lan Yudi said seriously. Lu Yi shook his head. If it weren't for senior martial sister's protection, I wouldn't be here today. Speaking of which, I should be the one thanking senior martial sister. Then we're even. Lan Yudi smiled slightly. Before Lu Yi could say anything, Hua Si, who was treating the body cultivator's wounds, blinked innocently. Didn't you tell me last time that I should repay a debt of gratitude with my body? Ah? Last time? Lan Yudi looked at Lu Yi in surprise. Lu Ye's face darkened. Ignore her. My family's medical cultivator likes to talk nonsense. Chapter 190. He then exchanged names with the body cultivator who was being treated. He was the guardian of an 8th-rank sect in Dingzhou. His name was Gao Tai. After learning Lu Ye's identity, Gao Tai was surprised. So you're Lu Ye from the Jade Blood sect. 2 months ago, the battle at Golden Light Peak caused quite a commotion. Lu Yi was too lazy to correct the way others addressed him. Some things had already been spread, so he couldn't deny it. Lan Yudi was the vice guardian while Gao Tai was the guardian. Originally, there were 2 other people with them. However, in the battle with the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, those 2 had died in battle. Their belongings were still in Lu Ye's hands. Lu Yi immediately asked them to identify their belongings and return their storage pouches. Although they had narrowly escaped death, the deaths of their companions made Lan Yudi and Gao Tai somewhat depressed. After talking with them for a while, Lu Yi learned that their luck was pretty good. They had met up at the beginning, and then the 4 of them joined forces and killed a few myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. That was until they met those people from before. There were 4 of them, while the other side had 6. In a situation where their cultivations were about the same, the other side clearly had the upper hand. If Lu Yi hadn't suddenly appeared, the 2 of them would have died. Do you 2 recognize this? Lu Yi asked as he tossed a bone fragment to each of them. Lan Yudi and Gao Tai caught it and inspected it. They shook their heads. Lan Yudi asked, "What is this?" "I don't know." Lu Yi played with the other 2 bone fragments in his hand. "I found it over there." He had collected 2 bone fragments before, and when he went to clean up the battlefield, he actually found 2 more. One was from the body of the spell cultivator he killed in a sneak attack, and the other was from the corpse of another myriad Devil Ridge cultivator. This person had been killed before Lu Yi came, and it was one of the 3 corpses lying on the ground. When he told them about his discovery, Lan Yudi and Gao Tai both revealed surprised expressions. "You're saying that you found these bone fragments from 4 different sects? If those 2 people weren't from the same sect, then they were from 4 different sects. What exactly is this?" Lan Yudi poured her spiritual power into it, but there was no reaction. She pinched it with all her might, but there was still no reaction. She even used her short knife to cut it a few times, but it didn't break. "I've never seen it before. Perhaps it's a spirit material that we don't recognize," Gao Tai guessed. "But why would it appear in the bodies of people from the 4 different sects?" Lan Yudi saw the problem. Lu Yi also wanted to know the reason, but she couldn't find an answer. Previously, Hua Si had guessed that the 2 myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were related by blood. But now, it seemed that this guess wasn't reliable. It didn't make sense that all 4 of them were related by blood. Moreover, they had joined 4 different sections. In the end, he could only put it aside for now. He planned to ask 4th senior brother. 4th senior brother was experienced and knowledgeable, so he should have some clues. After letting Lan Yudi and Gao Tai recover from their injuries, Lu Yi remained vigilant while sending a message to her 4th senior brother. As for Hua Si, she ran out to plant more mushrooms. The island wasn't too big, so she could still control it. However, if the island was too big, she wouldn't be able to plant mushrooms everywhere. She could only concentrate them in a certain area. 4th senior brother didn't reply for the time being. Lu Yi guessed that he might be fighting with someone. Lu Yi wasn't worried about that. Over the past few days, he had gained a better understanding of the cultivation world. He knew about the spirit stream list and that 4th senior brother was an expert ranked 10th on the list. It was said that the guardian of the Pillheart sect was a monster ranked first on the list. With the two of them together, there were very few people in the Chess Sea who could pose a threat to them. After waiting for a while, the imprint replied, "I was fighting with someone just now. Little junior brother, what's the matter?" Fourth senior brother's tone was relaxed. The person who fought with him obviously didn't have a good ending. Lu Yi described his discovery in detail and asked fourth senior brother about the bone fragment. Unexpectedly, before he could describe it in detail, fourth senior brother had already told him about the characteristics of the bone fragment. "Senior brother, you have one too?" Lu Yi was surprised. "I just found one." Lu Yi suddenly had a bad feeling. He was at the periphery of the Chess Sea, while fourth senior brother was at the center of the Chess Sea. The fact that the same bone fragment had appeared on the bodies of different myriad Devil Ridge cultivators and in different locations in the Chess Sea clearly indicated something. What exactly is this thing? I've never seen it before. I'll go ask someone and let me know if I have any results. But after ending the communication with fourth senior brother, Lu Yi rubbed the bone fragment in his hand. After thinking for a while, he put it in his storage bag. For hours later, another small island floated over. It wasn't as big as Lu Ye's island and seemed to have only merged a few times. However, after attaching themselves to each other, Lu Yi found that they were cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. There were only two of them, and both of them were injured. It seemed that they had been through a fierce battle. When they met up with each other, they were overjoyed to find out that there was a medical cultivator on Lu Ye's side. They had originally planned to fight to the death. After all, in their current state, they definitely wouldn't have a good ending if they encountered cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. They didn't expect that they would be so lucky. Not only did they encounter cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance, but they also encountered a medical cultivator who could save lives and heal the injured. Hua Si treated their injuries, and the two of them were naturally grateful. As a result, there were now 6 cultivators gathered on the small island. Everyone felt much safer now. Even if they were to encounter a group of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators, they would still be able to put up a fight. Moreover, if they were to encounter a group of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators, who knew which side would have more people? At the same time, fierce battles broke out on the small islands of different sizes in the entire Chess Sea. Every battle ended with the complete annihilation of one side. Looking at the situation in the entire Chess Sea, there was no doubt that the Myriad Devil Ridge had the absolute advantage because many cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge had gathered together. On the other hand, there were not many cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance who could meet up with their own camp. Most of them encountered cultivators who were hostile to them. Even if they won this battle, there would be another battle waiting for them. As the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge continued to gather, they could often form a situation where they outnumbered the enemy. In this way, the Grand Heaven Alliance suffered even more casualties. Once they encountered the enemy, they basically didn't have much power to resist. Half a day later, a great battle broke out. There were 6 people on the Grand Heaven Alliance's side and 6 people on the other side. Their numbers were equal, but on the surface, the Grand Heaven Alliance's side was obviously at a disadvantage. Lu Yi and Hua Si were 2 sixth-order cultivators, and the remaining 4 were all injured. Even with Hua Si's treatment, it would still take them a few days to recover. After a short probing confrontation, Lu Yi and the others were defeated and retreated to the back of the island. Seeing this, the 6 cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge chased after them with great momentum. In the end, the ground was littered with chicken feathers. When these 6 people stepped into the mushroom area planted by Hua Si, they were doomed to die. Even though they had seen such a scene before, Lan Yu Dai and Gao Tai were still a little uncomfortable. The 2 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance who saw such a scene for the first time were even more horrified. Fortunately, although they were horrified, they didn't show any mercy. In this great battle, it could be said that everyone had gained something, and they were all smiling. They were already grateful to Hua Si, so their expressions became even more amiable. In such a place, it was really reassuring to have a medical cultivator at the back, not to mention that this medical cultivator had a strange method to weaken the enemy. It could be said that Hua Si had contributed greatly to this battle being won so easily. After the battle, no one took the spoils, and they all handed it over to Hua Si. For them, being able to kill the enemy and obtain merit points and the support of the Heaven's Fate Pillar was already a great profit. Who would have the nerve to share the spoils? Hua Si naturally refused, but the others refused so fiercely that she could only accept it with a smile. After this great battle, they also realized Hua Si's importance. After discussing with Lu Yi, they finally decided that in the future, one person would be assigned to protect Hua Si in every battle. This really made Lu Yi feel what it meant to be treated differently. However, he was also happy to see this. After all, Hua Si's strength was a little weak, so she would be safer if someone was assigned to protect her. After the great battle, they naturally recovered. At this moment, a message came. Lu Yi checked it and found that it was from fourth senior brother. Hurry up and throw away those bone pieces. Those things can affect the chess islands in the chess sea. The chess islands of the people with the bone pieces will be attracted to each other. The people of the Myriad Demons Ridge are constantly gathering with the help of these bone pieces. Haotian Alliance is going to suffer in this battle of Spirit Creek. Seeing this message, Lu Yi could not help but be stunned. He had felt that those bone pieces were a little strange, but he did not expect them to have such a wonderful effect. According to fourth senior brother's message, these bone pieces could actually affect the chess islands in the chess sea. The chess islands of the people with the bone pieces would be attracted to each other and eventually gather together. This way, the people of the Myriad Demons Ridge would grow stronger like a rolling snowball. Combining all the things that he had encountered before, Lu Yi immediately judged that fourth senior brother should be right. The 4 bone pieces that he had obtained belonged to different forces of the Myriad Demons Ridge, but they could gather together in the chess sea. There might be an element of luck involved, but it was very likely that the bone pieces had an effect on the chess islands. If that was the case, then Haotian Alliance was really going to suffer in this battle of Spirit Creek. Where did this bone piece come from? Has it never appeared before? Lu Yi sent a message to ask. It seems to have been accidentally discovered by a sect of the Myriad Demons Ridge in the chess sea a few decades ago. It was the remains of a powerful sea demon beast. After they brought it back, the people of the Myriad Demons Ridge somehow found a way to use the remains and polished it into bone pieces. They took advantage of this battle of Spirit Creek to distribute it to various sects, big and small. Fourth senior brother hurriedly replied, "Little junior brother, you must be careful. Try to team up with other people of the Haotian Alliance as much as possible. Hold on until all the chess islands merge. I'll look for you then. I'm not in much danger here. Be careful, senior brother," Lu Yi replied. After ending the message with Li Baxian, Lu Yi frowned. The Myriad Demons Ridge had definitely come prepared this time. Before this, the news of these bone pieces had not been spread. It was only when the Battle of Spirit Creek began that the Myriad Demons Ridge suddenly launched an attack. Obviously, they had been planning this for a long time. The Great Sage of Human Tao. However, the maintenance staff will correct the content of the chapter within 2 minutes after you submit it. Please wait patiently. Chapter 191. Perhaps the Myriad Demon Ridge had prepared this in the past, but because the terrain wasn't the chess sea, the bone fragments didn't play a role. The bone fragments weren't spirit materials, so even if the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance seized them, they wouldn't care too much about them. This time, the defensive battle was in the chess sea, so the well-prepared Myriad Demon Ridge naturally had a great advantage. If this was the case, then fourth senior brother would be in danger because the Myriad Demon Ridge had a premeditated plan. Obviously, they wouldn't be satisfied with just killing some 7th or 8th order cultivators. They were more willing to target the guardian envoys and deputy envoys of the core circle. Those people were the future pillars of their respective sects. If they all died here, the Spirit Stream Realm cultivators wouldn't be completely wiped out, but there would definitely be fewer people to carry the sect for the next few decades. The Myriad Demon Ridge was playing a big game of chess. Even if the function of the bone fragments was exposed, the Myriad Demon Ridge was fearless because the merging and attachment of the chess islands in the chess sea wasn't controlled by humans. Everyone who entered here could only passively wait for the chess island they were on to merge with other chess islands and then participate in the battle. Before all the chess islands merged into a huge continent, even a master like Li Baxin couldn't fly over the sea and escape to another chess island in a crisis. Flying over the sea consumed too much spirit energy, and Lu Yi knew this very well. The myriad demons Ridge, who had the bone fragment, naturally had a great advantage. When he told them the news he got from Li Baxin, they were all shocked. No one expected the bone fragments to have such a magical function. My fourth senior brother told me to throw away the bone fragments quickly, or else it will take us to join the myriad demon ridge cultivators with the bone fragments. As Lu Yi spoke, he took out all the bone fragments and rubbed them in his hand. It seemed that he had no intention of throwing them away. What does junior brother think? Lan Yudai looked at him. What do you think? Lu Yesbek, one of the two Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who came later said, Senior Martial Brother Li doesn't know about our situation here. He made this suggestion because he's worried about Junior Martial Brother Iye's safety. There are 6 of us now, and with Junior Sister Hua Xi's arrangement, even if we encounter people from the Myriad Devil Ridge, as long as there are less than 10 of us, we can still fight them. If this bone fragment really has such an effect, I feel that not only should we not throw it away, but we should also use it to bring us to the Myriad Devil Ridge. After he finished speaking, he turned his head and looked around. His fellow disciple naturally nodded in agreement. Lan Yudai and Gao Tai looked at each other and nodded. Everyone looked at Lu Yi. Lu Yi smiled and said, Since no one has any objections, we'll each take one. I wonder if the effects will become stronger if we have more of these things. As he spoke, he distributed 3 out of the 4 bone fragments in his hand. Coincidentally, each person from the sect had one. His expression was solemn. Right now, many people from the Myriad Devil Ridge must have gathered. The Grand Heaven Alliance probably suffered a great loss. As long as we can kill more enemies, we can reduce our losses. This way, we'll have the capital to fight against the Myriad Devil Ridge after all the chess islands merge. Lan Yudai nodded. You're right, Junior Martial Brother. Gao Tai suddenly had a sense of honor and mission. If that's the case, the heavy responsibility of saving the Grand Heaven Alliance falls on us? As soon as he said that, the other 2 people's expressions turned serious. Lu Yi laughed. It's not that exaggerated. Some people from the Grand Heaven Alliance are lucky enough to gather together. Anyway, no matter what, we'll work harder together. Everyone nodded and felt a heavy burden on their shoulders. Everyone take a rest. I'll be on guard, Lu Yi said and went to the highest point of the small island in a flash. 2 hours later, a small island appeared in Lu Ye's sight. He immediately issued a warning. Everyone who was recuperating stood up and looked into the distance. They couldn't see the situation on the small island clearly, so they didn't know which camp they were from. However, no matter which camp they were from, everyone was ready to fight. After a simple discussion, a new plan to lure the enemies deep in came out. Lan Yudai and Gao Tai would be in charge of luring the enemies, while Lu Yi and the others would retreat to the back of the small island. If the enemies were cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance, they would naturally welcome them warmly. If they were from the Myriad Devil Ridge, Lan Yudai and Gao Tai would lure them over. As long as they dared to chase after them, they would definitely pass through the mushroom area set up by Hua Xi. By then, they would have to improvise. The reason why Lan Yudai and Gao Tai were in charge of luring the enemies was that Gao Tai was a body cultivator with thick skin and flesh. Even if he was hit a few times, it wouldn't be fatal. With Hua Xi in charge of the rear, as long as he wasn't killed on the spot or suffered severe injuries, he would have a chance to be treated afterward. In short, Gao Tai was in charge of taking a beating. As for Lan Yudai, she was in charge of being as beautiful as a flower, with such a delicate and graceful female cultivator running in front with so many bloodstains on her body, it would be easy for the Myriad Devil Ridge's cultivators to chase after her. This plan was proposed by Lu Yi and received everyone's approval. Only Lan Yudai looked at Lu Yi with a somewhat unfriendly expression. After the plan was formulated, everyone immediately began to implement it. Lu Yi, Hua Xi, and the others retreated to the back of the small island, while Lan Yu Dai and Gao Tai continued to watch from the commanding heights. While they were waiting, there was a loud boom. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed as the two islands collided. Lu Yi focused his senses and soon, there were fluctuations of spirit power and the whistling sound of spells flying through the air. After a short while, Lu Yi checked the battlefield imprint and transmitted the information he received from Lan Yu Dai. 5 people from the Myriad Devil Ridge. 5 people meant that at least one person from 3 sects had died in the battle. Even if the Myriad Devil Ridge had planned this, in a real battle, it was not certain that one could escape unscathed with more people. When they knew that they were going to die, regardless of whether it was the people from the Myriad Devil Ridge or the Haotian Alliance, they would erupt with the momentum and determination to perish together with the enemy. Of course, after being weakened by Hua Xi's mushrooms, such momentum and determination were not much of a threat. Rumbling sounds kept coming from the front. Lu Yi soon saw Lan Yu Dai and Gao Tai fleeing in this direction in a sorry state. The two of them did not run together but split up. The cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge who were chasing after them were also very careful. They kept observing the situation around them while chasing, afraid that they would be ambushed. However, as long as they dared to land on this chess island, no matter how careful they were, it would be useless. Hua Xi's arrangements did not cover the entire island, but she had planted mushrooms at all the key points. Unless the cultivators could maintain a flying posture, they would inevitably inhale some of the spores. After seeing Lu Yi and the others, the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge who were chasing after them showed an expression that they had expected it. However, after discovering that Lu Yi and Hua Xi were only in the 6th order, they relaxed a lot. 6 against 5, it was hard to say who had the upper hand, but on Lu Ye's side, other than Hua Xi and him, the other 4 were all covered in blood. It was obvious that they were all injured. Just as the 5 people were hesitating whether to attack or not, Lu Yi and the others had already rushed forward. The 5 people had no choice but to meet them head-on. Spirit artifacts flew out one after another and collided with each other in mid-air, making clanging sounds. Halos of spirit energy explosions rose and fell one after another. Because Lu Yi and the others had left one person to protect Hua Xi, and because he was only in the 6th order and could not control his artifact yet, the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge had the absolute advantage in this battle. Just as the 5 people from the Myriad Devil Ridge thought this, the situation suddenly took a turn for the worse. The spirit chi in their bodies became obscure, and they lost control of their spirit artifacts. In an instant, Lan Yu Dai and the others knocked down 3 of their spirit artifacts. When Lu Yi rushed in front of a Myriad Devil Ridge cultivator, the latter retreated in horror. However, he could not block the saber light coming at him head-on. Blood splattered and screams rang out one after another. After 20 breaths, the battle was over. Lu Yi shook off the blood on his saber and sheathed it. He then called out to Gao Tai, "Senior brother Gao, accompany me to the opposite island to take a look." But Gao Tai hurriedly agreed. The two of them went to investigate together. Although they felt that it was impossible for the other side to have left anyone there, it was always right to be careful. If there was any negligence that led to casualties on their side, it would not be worth it. Lan Yu Dai and the others stayed behind to clean up the battlefield and gave all the spoils to Hua Xi as usual. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She didn't know how many storage bags she would have collected after this battle. She wanted to split some of her forces, but no one was willing to accept it. Everyone knew that the reason why the battle was so easy was all because of Hua Xi. Without Hua Xi's skills, even if they were 6 against 5, there would still be casualties. On the other hand, no one was injured, and they didn't even consume much spirit chi. Who wouldn't like such a battle? This made them even more determined to protect Hua Xi. On the other side, Lu Yi and Gao Tai carefully checked to make sure that there were no Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators hiding there before returning to the main island. Afterwards, Lan Yu Dai accompanied Hua Xi to the opposite island to make the corresponding arrangements. As the island expanded, Hua Xi needed to set up more places. Therefore, she couldn't set up the entire island. She could only choose a few suitable locations, and this kind of thing consumed a lot of spirit power. Fortunately, The spirit-gathering spirit rune that Lu Yi had constructed previously was still in effect. Every time she finished setting up the rune, she only needed to meditate and recover, and she would be able to recover very quickly. Especially with the expansion of the island, the world energy became richer and richer. The world energy on the island was almost twice that of the Blue Blood Sect's station. While Hua Si was busy, Lu Yi thought about it and constructed a larger spirit-gathering spirit rune where everyone was resting. This spirit-gathering spirit rune consumed 60% of his spirit chi. Seeing Lu Ye's methods, Gao Tai and the rest were all shocked as if they were celestial beings. Only now did they realize that the two people from the Blue Blood Sect were treasures. Not only could Hua Si heal and save people, but she could also plant mushrooms to weaken enemies. Lu Yi could also easily construct spirit-gathering runes. This would undoubtedly make everyone's recovery much easier. In the future, they would no longer have to worry about spirit energy consumption. What kind of godly sect was the Blue Blood Sect? Once you submit it, the maintenance staff will correct the content in 2 minutes. Please wait patiently. Chapter 192. Time passed. As the island merged and collided with other islands, battles broke out from time to time. Lu Yi and the others continued with their previous battle plan. Every time, they would let Gao Tai and Lan Yudi go out to lure the enemy in. Then they would gather and destroy them. Although this method was a bit old, it was extremely effective. It wasn't that no one saw through their simple trick, but even if they did, so what? Unless the people from the Myriad Devil Ridge didn't chase after them, they wouldn't be able to return if they did. Occasionally, they would encounter cultivators from their own side. The merging and attachment of the islands in the Chess Sea should follow a principle of proximity. The two closest islands would move closer to each other. At the same time, the strange bone pieces would play a role and attract each other. 3 days later, there were more than 20 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance gathered on the island. At this time, it was very difficult to encounter cultivators who were alone. Regardless of whether it was the Myriad Devil Ridge or the Grand Heaven Alliance, the weaker side had been wiped out long ago. The ones who survived were the cultivators who gathered together and formed small groups. A small group of more than 20 people was not a small number. This also made the battle easier. Even if they encountered more cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge, the Grand Heaven Alliance would not lose out at all. With Hua Si at the back, the cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance weren't afraid of fighting. They didn't care if they were injured or not. After the battle, Hua Si would heal them. Moreover, with the spirit-gathering runes constructed by Lu Yi, they didn't need to worry about spirit force consumption. Therefore, the cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance were like a group of fierce tigers in battle. The Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who faced them were doubting their lives. The island gradually expanded. Hua Si no longer went out to plant mushrooms because it was beyond her control. She was now a key target of protection. There were always 2 cultivators by her side. Even Gao Tai would follow Lu Yi closely when he went out to battle. It was as if he would sacrifice himself to save Lu Yi at any time. Although the 2 from the Jade Blood Sect had the lowest cultivation, they were of great help to the Grand Heaven Alliance in this environment. No one dared to let anything happen to them. A jade-green light flickered, and a numb and itchy feeling came over. Hua Si was healing Lu Yi. This time, they encountered a tough nut to crack. When a small island on the opposite side merged, they discovered that there were more than 30 cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge gathered there. This was a terrifying number. It could be said that at this stage, this group of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators was practically invincible in the Chess Sea. No one would be a match for them. Those Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators must have gone through many small islands to form such a scale. They were invincible and arrogant all the way here. As a result, when they charged into the main island, they immediately met with misfortune. In just a few dozen breaths of time, more than 10 of the 30 people died. The rest of the people fled in panic, leaving behind a few more corpses before returning to their island. Lu Yi and the others naturally chased after them. However, the other party had also set up some traps in advance, causing some casualties on their side. The situation suddenly came to a stalemate. Neither side dared to rashly set foot on the other's island. Both sides sent out a few eloquent debaters to argue with each other across the air. However, it was not a solution to continue arguing like this. They had the advantage in numbers, and there were also medical cultivators in the rear. After some discussion, they decided to attack forcefully. The battle on the chess sea could not be dragged on for too long because no one could say when another island would merge. If it were their own people, they would naturally be overjoyed. However, if it were their enemies, it would only make the situation worse. After all, after every battle, they still needed some time to recover. After 2 strong attacks, although no one on their side died, a few people were injured. They had no choice but to give up. We can't drag this out any longer. With that bone piece playing a role, the next opponent we encounter will most likely be from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. At that time, it will become more and more disadvantageous for us, a guardian of an 8th rank sect said. This wasn't him trying to scare them, but the truth. Over the past 3 days, Lu Yi and the others had gathered over 20 people, but most of them had encountered cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. According to the odds, every time the islands merged, the chances of encountering cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge were around 70%. This was undoubtedly the bone piece playing a role, affecting the direction of the chess island's movement. There is a formation cultivator on the other side. Although the formation he set up is still crude, its power cannot be underestimated. We have to find a way to kill that formation cultivator. That guy is well protected by the people of the Myriad Demon's Ridge. It will be difficult to kill him. The few of them discussed while recovering, but in the end, they couldn't come up with an effective plan. Of course, if they didn't care about the losses and forced their way through, they would definitely be able to win with their current advantage in numbers. However, they didn't know how many people would die. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one was willing to do that. Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at a thin cultivator beside him. This person was holding a palm-sized spider and repairing it. The spider looked very lifelike, almost no different from a real spider. However, it was not a living creature, but a kind of mechanical creation. The thin cultivator was the guardian of the Qinji Pavilion, called Lu Yushan. The Qinji Pavilion was a very special sect in the 9 states because this sect inherited the school of Yanshi. In addition to the 6 major schools of cultivators, there were also some smaller schools. Some had a long history, and some were rising, but without exception, these schools were very small and did not conform to the general cultivation trend, so they generally did not form a large scale. The sect master used to have a double-armed carriage. The horses pulling the carriage were like living creatures, which was a creation of Yanshi. However, on the way back to the Blue Blood sect with Lu Yi, it was ambushed and destroyed. At that time, the sect master also told Lu Yi that he might have a chance to meet Yanshi in the future. This Lu Yushan was a Yanshi who was good at making mechanical creations. Lu Yi's impression of Yanshi was limited by the double-armed carriage, thinking that the things made by Yanshi were probably only auxiliary. However, after fighting side by side with Lu Yushan, he found that his understanding of Yanshi was somewhat biased. Their creations could kill enemies, and they were very powerful. Lu Yushan had a spirit artifact, the Thunder Dragon Cannon. Its attack method was very simple. It absorbed the spirit energy of spirit stones, compressed it, and then shot it out. Lu Yi saw with his own eyes that a 7th-order weapon cultivator was hit by the Thunder Dragon Cannon, and then half of his chest was gone. Such a fierce attack, even his defensive spirit rune could not resist. However, even though it was ferocious, it also had a huge drawback. It took a long time to store up power, so it was very easy to avoid. Therefore, during the battle, Lu Yushan did not use it, but once he used it, it would be earth-shattering. At the same time, the consumption of the Thunder Dragon Cannon was also very large. One shot would cost 4 spirit stones. Yanshi's mechanical creations were very exquisite. They relied mostly on external forces, so it was difficult for high-level cultivators to see Yanshi's shadow. However, this did not mean that Yanshi had no future. Talented Yanshi could also cultivate to a high realm. The sect master of the 1000 Secret Pavilion was a Spirit Sea realm cultivator, but because the number of disciples in the sect was too small, The sex grade was only 8th grade. At this moment, the spider that Lu Yushan was repairing was a mechanical creation. This thing had no lethality and was only used to detect the enemy's situation. The situation on the opposite island was detected by him using this kind of mechanical spider. After healing, Lu Yi picked up a mechanical spider to investigate. Lu Yushan looked up and smiled at Lu Yi. "Junior brother Yi, are you interested in this thing? I've never seen it before. Yanshi is a small sect, and there are not many people. It is normal that junior brother has not seen it before. Does senior brother have many of these creations? I have more than a dozen." Lu Yushan said frankly, "If junior brother wants one, take it and play with it." Lu Yi took one and walked over to Hua Ci. Hua Ci looked at the spider in his hand with a vigilant face. Her hair stood on end, but on the surface she remained calm. "What are you doing? Take a look at this." Lu Yi threw the spider to her, but Hua Ci did not catch it and it fell directly on her chest. Hua Ci looked down, motionless. Her face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye, and her body began to tremble slightly. "Are you afraid?" Lu Yi picked up the spider again and looked at her in surprise. "I'm not afraid." Hua Ci's voice changed. Lu Yi nodded. "Senior brother Lu has more than a dozen of these things. I was thinking, if you can plant the mushroom here and then let senior brother Lu send it to the other side, when the time is right." He clenched a fist and opened it in front of Hua Ci. Boom! Since the enemy did not dare to come over, the mushroom would be sent over. The effect would be the same. If this method worked, then the future battle would not be limited to luring the enemy in, but they could also take the initiative to attack. Of course, the premise was that Lu Yushan had enough mechanical creations. Can it work? The Guardian Envoys, who were discussing how to kill the cultivators of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, also looked over. Lu Yushan also stopped what he was doing. Hua Ci took a deep breath and reached out to take the spider in Lu Ye's hand, calmly saying, "I'll try." When her fingertips touched Lu Ye's hand, Lu Yi felt that her skin was very cold. After a while, Hua Ci said, "Yes, but I don't know if senior brother Lu can still control this thing." As soon as her voice fell, Lu Yushan urged his spiritual power. With a slight movement of his mind, the spider in Hua Ci's hand suddenly moved, and its hairy claws scratched her palm. With a bang, the spider slapped Lu Ye's face. Lu Ye's face was covered with dust from the exploding spores, and even the delicate spider was torn apart. Everyone around looked at this scene with stunned eyes. Hua Ci smiled firmly. "My hand slipped." Lu Yi wiped his face and looked at her expressionlessly. Only Lu Yushan stretched out a trembling hand and said bitterly, "My 8 claws." The plan worked. Several people immediately began to work. Lu Yushan had a junior sister on his side. Both of them had many small and exquisite mechanical creations. Hua Ci planted mushrooms in each of those creations. After she was done, she was about to collapse. Chapter 193. The battle had already begun, and more than 20 people from their side were advancing. The body cultivator was at the front, followed by the weapon cultivator, followed by the Dharma cultivator and the ghost cultivator. Hua Ci was at the back, and 2 cultivators followed her closely, blocking any possible attacks for her. The power of techniques and artifact manipulation began to show. The 2 sides fought fiercely from a distance, and their spirit energies surged. Lu Yi and Lu Yushan stood at the highest point of the island, not participating in the battle. They had more important tasks. At this moment, Lu Yushan was sitting cross-legged in front of Lu Yi, his spirit energies surging as he controlled his spider creation to sneak into the enemy's chess island. Lu Yushan assumed a strong offensive posture just to attract the enemy's attention and make it easier for him to move. Otherwise, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators would easily discover the strange spiders. After all, there were basically no living creatures on the chess island. Lu Yi stood here to protect Lu Yushan, who was controlling the mechanism creation, and to wait for an opportunity. The enemy array cultivator had to be killed. Otherwise, even if Hua Ci's method worked, their side would suffer losses. He watched for a moment before turning his head to look at the sea. There was another chess island floating towards them, and it would probably merge with them in an incense stick's worth of time. He didn't know whether it was an enemy or a friend, so he couldn't delay. If there were dozens of myriad Demon Ridge cultivators there, they would be attacked from both sides. The aftermath of the battle became fiercer and fiercer until a certain moment, Lu Yushan opened his eyes and stood up. Everyone is in position. Lu Yi nodded. Let's move. He took a step forward and held Lu Yushan's arm with both hands. Fiery red spirit energies flowed behind his back and turned into wings. He soared into the sky and flew straight towards the battlefield. Hua Si, who was at the back of the array, noticed the spirit energies fluctuations and turned her head to look back. She saw Lu Yi flying over with Lu Yushan. Their eyes met and she nodded slightly. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yi and Lu Yushan passed through their ranks. This scene also shocked the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge. Although they didn't know what Grand Heaven Alliance was going to do, it was obviously something big. Several streams of light immediately changed direction and swept towards Lu Yi, but before they could get close, they lost their momentum. The artifact manipulation of 7th Order cultivators was limited, so how could Lu Yi easily break into their attack range? It could be said that he was invincible when he activated the flying wing tattoo. Lu Yushan, who was held in front of him, was on tenterhooks for a while. When he discovered that the enemy couldn't attack him at all, he also relaxed and made a hand seal while shouting in a low voice, "Explode!" In the Myriad Devil Ridge camp, spiders that were hiding in ambush exploded one after another. This gave everyone from the Myriad Devil Ridge quite a shock. No one knew what was going on. However, after the spiders exploded, they did not suffer any damage. Just as they were feeling suspicious, Hua Si took action. A circle of dark green aura, visible to the naked eye, spread out in all directions with her as the center. It went past the cultivators on her side and enveloped the cultivators on her side. The dozen or so cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge panicked because the spiritual power in their bodies had become obscure and sluggish, just like last time. The last time they had barged into the other party's chess island, they had encountered such a thing. In that battle, they had suffered heavy casualties. After returning to the island, they had spent a lot of effort to remove the poison that had invaded their bodies and restore the circulation of their spiritual power. They no longer dared to barge into the other party's island at will. They had been guarding their own chess island, but even so, they could not avoid the enemy's methods. In an instant, several Imperial artifact streams were shot down. At the rear of the Myriad Devil Ridge camp, a green-robed man watched with a solemn expression. He held a spirit array in his hand, waiting for the people from Grand Heaven Alliance to step into a certain area before activating the power of the spirit array that he had set up in advance. He vaguely felt that today was not a good day, but before he died, he would not let the people from Grand Heaven Alliance have an easy time. No matter what, he would drag a few of them down with him. However, at this moment, a great sense of crisis enveloped him. He suddenly looked up and saw a bright light blooming in the sky. As time passed, the light became brighter and brighter, as if it had turned into a small sun in a short period of time. The sense of crisis was coming from the sky. "It's that Yen Shi." A cultivator protecting him shouted in a low voice. Lu Yushan had previously blasted the chest of a 7th Order cultivator with a single shot. This scene was still fresh in the minds of the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. Seeing the small sun-like light blooming, how could they not know who was preparing to attack? They also saw a person holding Yen Shi behind him. That person had a pair of fiery red wings with flowing spirit energy on his back. "Don't let him get close." Someone shouted again. 2 streams of light immediately flew over, shuttling back and forth. As long as Lu Yi dared to approach, he would immediately be met with a storm-like attack. However, Lu Yi just flew with Lu Yushan and stopped outside the attack range of their Imperial artifact. No matter how fast the 2 streams of light shuttled back and forth, they could not hurt them at all. The smile on Lu Yushan's face gradually began to turn ferocious. After a few breaths of time, the strangely shaped spirit artifact in his hand was fully charged. "Thunder Dragon Roar!" Lu Yushan roared. A strong light fell from the sky, turning into a beam of light that blasted straight in the direction of the array cultivator. Wherever the light passed, the two imperial artifacts in front of him were directly blown away. When Lu Yushan stimulated the power of his spirit artifact, the array cultivator felt that something was wrong and hurriedly dodged to the side. At the same time, a myriad devil ridge body cultivator who was protecting him held a shield spirit artifact and blocked in front of him like a mountain. Pushing his spirit energy, the shield flashed with light. However, no matter how strong the light was, it was still covered by the beam of light that descended from the sky. The powerful spirit energy fluctuations slowly dissipated, and from the sky to the ground, light particles were annihilated like fireflies. Looking at the place covered by the beam of light, the myriad devil ridge body cultivator's shield spirit artifact was covered with cracks and shattered with a crash. At the same time, the body cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to his knees with a thud. The array cultivator in blue was not injured, but he was still shaken by the strong impact. Just as he got up, a figure fell from the sky, followed by a bright blade light that flashed in front of him. Not far away, Lu Yushan fell to the ground with a thud and spat out the soil in his mouth. Looking at Lu Yi, who had already killed his way into the enemy's rear, he grimaced in pain. Too realistic. After he fired that shot, Lu Yi immediately threw him away. If it weren't for his 7th order cultivation and the ability to fly, he would have fallen to his death. He knew that Lu Yi wanted to kill the array cultivator as soon as possible, so he hurriedly got up and rushed over with his Thunder Dragon cannon. However, after just a few steps, he saw Lu Yi flying into the sky again with blood spurting out of his body. Several streams of light chased after him. Got him! Lu Yi roared. Kill! In the Grand Heaven Alliance camp, Gao Tai roared and was the first to rush forward. The enemy's array cultivator was dead, and the arranged spirit arrays had become inanimate objects without anyone controlling them. There was no need to worry about them anymore. The battle ended quickly. Without the array cultivator, their strength had been weakened by Hua Ci, and they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. How could the myriad demons' ridge side be a match for them? They fell one after another and were soon killed. It was another hearty victory. Except for a few people who were injured, no one died. The most seriously injured was Lu Yi. He killed his way into the enemy's rear with his flying ability. While he killed the array cultivator, he was also injured by several other myriad demons' ridge cultivators. Fortunately, they were only flesh wounds and were not serious. Keep fighting, don't stop. Another chess island is approaching. After Lu Yi finished speaking, the group of people knew what he was planning. The array cultivator immediately activated his spirit array while the others attacked each other with their spirit arrays. The battle was in full swing, and the clanging sounds and fluctuations of spirit chi spread far and wide. Lan Yu Dai brought 2 people to hide nearby and investigate the situation. After a while, the earth shook and the mountains shook. The 2 chess islands collided. After a while, Lan Yu Dai sent news that there was no need to act anymore. The people who came were actually from the Grand Heaven Alliance, and there were more than 10 of them. When the 2 sides met, the number of people on their side increased to nearly 40. However, compared to Lu Ye's side, these people were in a much worse state. Almost all of them were injured, and their clothes were covered in blood. Some of them were seriously injured and were on the verge of death. Knowing that there was a medical cultivator here, they were all overjoyed. According to the severity of their injuries, Hua Ci treated them one by one. Because of the battlefield imprint, news spread quickly in the chess sea. Now, almost everyone on the Grand Heaven Alliance side knew that the Myriad Demons Ridge came prepared this time and wanted to massacre the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators. However, even if they knew this, the Grand Heaven Alliance side could not change the situation. Now, everyone on the Grand Heaven Alliance only had one hope, and that was to meet with the chess island where the Jade Blood Sect was located. It was rumored that not only did they have a medical cultivator who could treat injuries, but they also had a few huge spirit-gathering spirit runes that could help people recover quickly. However, they had no control over which chess island would merge with. Most of the cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance could only stick together as much as possible so that fewer people would die in battle. This way, they would have the power to fight back when they encountered an enemy. It had to be said that the chess island where Lu Yi and the others were at had disrupted the deployment of the Myriad Devil Ridge to a certain extent. If they hadn't killed those Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, those small groups from the Myriad Devil Ridge would have definitely continued to expand and converge. In this way, any cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance who encountered them would only have a dead end. In this way, the Myriad Devil Ridge's advantage would snowball. They killed the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators not only to kill the enemy, but also to a large extent, to prevent the deaths of many of their own cultivators. Previously, Gao Tai said that they shouldered the heavy responsibility of saving the Grand Heaven Alliance. Although it was a joke, the situation was indeed slowly developing in this direction. With this successful cooperation experience, the way Lu Yi and the others killed the enemy became more flexible. They no longer had to wait passively. When necessary, they could take the initiative to attack. For this reason, Lu Yushan and his junior sister from the Thousand Secrets Pavilion were urgently creating those small mechanical creations. Chapter 194. On the 10th day after entering the Chess Sea, more than 100 cultivators gathered on the Chess Island, and the end of the island could not be seen. On the 15th day, the number of cultivators increased to 200. The reason for such an explosive growth was that the number of cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance who were still alive in each batch was not small, ranging from a dozen to 30 to 40 cultivators. As the number of cultivators increased, the strength of the Grand Heaven Alliance also increased. Correspondingly, the battle became more intense. The cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance were gathering, and so were the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge. The small-scale battles between a few cultivators were no longer visible, but now, when the great battle broke out, the sky was filled with the light of spells and imperial artifacts. According to the information that Lu Yi currently had, the merger of the Chess Islands would generally last about 18 to 20 days. During this period, the Chess Islands scattered across the Chess Sea would slowly converge into a huge continent. When this continent was formed, some rare treasures would appear, and they might come from the Chess Islands that no one had set foot on. After the formation of the continent, it would last for about 10 days before collapsing again, transforming into countless Chess Islands. When that time came, the Battle of Spirit Creek would come to an end, and all of the cultivators who were still alive would be sent back to their respective sections. 15 days had passed, and in a few days, the merger of the Chess Islands would come to an end. Once the continent was formed, the confrontation between the cultivators of the two camps would become more intense. Now, everyone could only wait passively, but after the merger of the Chess Islands, they could take the initiative to attack. The preparations made by the Myriad Devil Ridge would truly come into play at that moment. These days, news from all sides had been spreading and exchanging. From time to time, there would be bad news. Some of the Chess Islands occupied by the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were attacked and annihilated. If too many cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance were killed or injured in the periphery, the Myriad Devil Ridge would be able to eliminate the Grand Heaven Alliance with their advantage in numbers after the continent was formed. If they had enough time to search, they could even kill everyone from the Grand Heaven Alliance. The situation in the periphery was not optimistic, and the situation in the inner circle was even worse. At least, the two cultivators from the Jade Blood sect were the core of the periphery, but the cultivators in the inner circle were not so lucky. When they fought, no one helped them to weaken the enemy's strength. When they were injured, no one helped them heal. They could only rely on taking pills or meditating to adjust their breathing when they consumed too much energy. After a series of fierce battles, even the 8th or 9th order cultivators who cultivated heaven-grade secret arts suffered many casualties. 2 days later, the number of cultivators on the island increased again. There were now more than 300 cultivators. There were 70 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance on the small island that was merged with the Grand Heaven Alliance. After learning that this was the Chess Island where the cultivators of the Jade Blood sect resided, the 70 or so people were overjoyed. It was as if they had found their mother's home. They even deliberately came over to get acquainted with Lu Yi and Hua Si. With a lineup of more than 300 people, their side was unprecedentedly powerful. Everyone was impatiently waiting for the final merger of the Chess Island. It was because only in this way could the other cultivators of the Hautian Alliance who had not gathered here take the initiative to approach them. Only then would they have a chance to survive. The day he had been waiting for had finally arrived. When the chess island suddenly shook and sped up in a certain direction, the expressions of all the cultivators on the chess island turned solemn. Everyone realized that the final merger had arrived. At this moment, the chess islands on the entire chess sea, which were originally difficult to calculate, had merged into one huge island after another. These islands were being pulled by some kind of force and were drifting in the same direction. Halfway through, some of the islands began to merge and attach to each other, becoming bigger islands. Some of the islands were inhabited, while others were uninhabited. The uninhabited islands were very small, as if they had never been merged before. However, without exception, those uninhabited islands contained some precious natural treasures. Some of them were even unique to the chess sea. There was another island somewhere on the chess island. The island was not small, and there was a fruit tree growing at the highest point of the island. 9 palm-sized blue flowers grew on the fruit tree. Even from 10 miles away, the fragrance of the flowers could be smelled in the air. The world energy visible to the naked eye turned into a vortex and gathered in the 9 blue flowers. The blue flowers were also changing rapidly. Under the stem of the flowers, fruits were beginning to grow. It was foreseeable that such a fruit tree would definitely attract strong cultivators from both camps to fight for it. A great battle was destined to break out here. Before the chess islands were completely merged, Liu Ye's side had already started fighting. This was because the nearby chess islands had attached themselves to them on the way to the merger. There were 2 chess islands at the same time, one on the left and one on the right, sandwiching Liu Ye's chess island in the middle. There were about 100 people gathered on each of the 2 chess islands. Before Liu Yi and the others could figure out which camp the 2 chess islands belonged to, the cultivators on the left and right had already charged toward them. Both sides were from the Myriad Devil Ridge. After contacting each other and communicating with each other, they concluded that the one sandwiched in the middle was from the Hautian Alliance. There was no need for them to be polite. When the cultivators on their side saw that there was such a good thing, they immediately became spirited. Ever since the number of cultivators on their side exceeded 100, they had been the ones to initiate the attack in every great battle. There was no other way. With so many cultivators, the enemy could no longer attack rashly. No matter how good they were at acting, they could not lure the enemy in. The enemy only needed to send a few people to investigate and they would know that the situation was not right. When they took the initiative to attack, even with Hua Xi's support, some casualties were inevitable. The cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge were not pushovers. Just like the people from the Hautian Alliance, they had experienced hundreds of battles and were never afraid of death. It had been many days, but no one dared to take the initiative to attack. As a result, the many tricks that Hua Xi had set up previously were useless. Therefore, even though they were being attacked from both sides, they did not panic at all. Instead, they were even a little expectant. Everyone looked eager to try and secretly urged their spiritual power. There were too many wolves and too little meat. This was the time to compete with their eyesight and hand speed. Killing the enemy's guardian would not only give them meritorious service, but they could also take away the blessing of the enemy's Tianji pillar. However, if they killed the deputy guardian, they would only get meritorious service. The difference was huge. The cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge on both sides cooperated well and were full of vigor. On the other hand, they stood in groups of 2 or 3. There was no special formation and they looked like a motley crew. As usual, spells and flying lights began to collide. After this fight, the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge on both sides realized that something was wrong. There were too many people from the Hautian Alliance on this side. Both sides added together did not have as many people as the enemy. However, the battle had already begun and they could not retreat now. They could only grit their teeth and persevere. Fortunately, they soon realized that the Hautian Alliance did not have a unified command. Therefore, even though they had more people, they did not have the upper hand. This made the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge calm down, and they attacked more vigorously. However, They did not know that most of the 300 cultivators from the Hautian alliance were focused on a gentle woman. Therefore, they did not seem to have much combat power. This woman was called Hua Xiai. The number of people who were responsible for protecting Hua Xiai increased to 5. One was a body cultivator, one was a weapon cultivator, one was a spell cultivator, one was a ghost cultivator, and one was Yenshi. She was Lu Yushan's junior sister. As Hua Xiai raised her jade-like hand, she changed her hand sign and a green halo swept out. The 300 cultivators from the Hautian alliance seemed to have received some instructions and their attacks intensified instantly. Along with the exclamations from both sides, a large area of flying lights in the sky was destroyed. The flying lights from the Hautian alliance's imperial weapons blasted into the enemy's camp. The body cultivators and weapon cultivators in the front were bleeding and more than 10 of them died on the spot. Thunder Dragon Roar. The thin and small Lu Yushan shouted with great vigor. The spiritual weapon in his hand emitted a strong beam of light and blasted into the enemy's group. No one knew how many people he killed, but his expression suddenly became very happy. Kill! Gao Tai roared angrily and was the first to attack again. The big shield spiritual weapon in his hand propped up a barrier and withstood the attacks of the cultivators from the other side. Behind him, the weapon cultivators advanced by leaps and bounds like jackals and wolves. Their vigor was so terrifying that 2 red lights almost floated out of their eyes. Lu Yi also followed behind him and did not leave him by an inch. After a while, Gao Tai collided with the body cultivator from the other side. It was like 2 huge rocks colliding. The shield spiritual weapon made a loud explosion and dense spiritual light. Both of them took a few steps back. This time, they were evenly matched. However, Gao Tai was laughing because while he was retreating, the weapon cultivators behind him had already flashed left and right. The burly body cultivator from the other side became frightened. Although he crazily urged his spiritual power and the power of his spiritual weapon, when the weapon cultivators passed by him, blood still spurted out of his body and he knelt on the ground. On the side of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, the body cultivators standing in the front row had the same experience. The defense system of the body cultivators in the front row had been broken through. What was left was a feast of killing. Lu Yi had just rushed to the front of a panicked spell cultivator when a flying light of a flying weapon attacked from the side and pierced a big hole in the spell cultivator's head. Lu Yi immediately withdrew the long saber that he had swung. This was a common thing. After these few battles, although they were lively, they did not really gain much. Now that they had more people on their side, there were people who did not gain anything in every battle. He immediately fixed his eyes on the next target, which was a weapon cultivator who was fleeing to the back. He raised his hand and shot out a Fire Phoenix technique, hitting that person until he staggered and his back was charred. Then he pounced on him and slashed down with his saber. Seeing 2 spots of red light fall on the back of his hand, Lu Yi heaved a long sigh of relief. In the current situation, it was really not easy to snatch a kill. The army was defeated like a landslide. As the Myriad Demon's Ridge fled, there were countless corpses along the way. The remaining dozen people were chased to the seaside. Seeing that they had nowhere to go, they all jumped into the sea. A large number of inexplicable shadows surged up from the sea and drowned these people. No! A Grand Sky Alliance cultivator reached out his hand and knelt on the ground with a plop. His eyes were red and his face was full of sorrow. If an uninformed person saw this, they would probably think that these people who jumped into the sea were his relatives. But why would you rather commit suicide than let me kill you? Damn it, another battle where they did not gain anything. Chapter 195. The battle on Lu Ye's side was over, and it was the same on the other side. They collected the spoils of war, counted the casualties, and took the initiative to go to Hua Xiai for treatment. They had killed many enemies in this battle, and their side had not suffered many casualties. Lu Yi sent a message to 4th senior brother to ask about the situation on his side. Before, because the chess islands had not been completely merged, there was no way for them to communicate with each other, but now that the final merger had begun, the previous restrictions would no longer exist once all the chess islands were merged into one continent. Lu Yi sent a message mainly to ask if fourth senior brother wanted to come over and join him. His situation was safe for the time being, and he even had the strength to suppress the myriad demons' rich people. If fourth senior brother's situation was not good, coming over to join him would undoubtedly be a good choice. However, he was in the outermost area, so if fourth senior brother came over, his cultivation would definitely be suppressed by Heaven's Secret. No matter what kind of terrain the Spirit Stream garrison battle took place, Heaven's Secret would always have this kind of balance and suppression. After all, the difference in cultivation between the garrison envoys of the various great sects was huge. Take Lu Yi and fourth senior brother for example. Lu Yi cultivated an Earth-grade secret art to the 6th order while fourth senior brother cultivated a Heaven-grade secret art to the 8th order. The difference in cultivation wasn't as simple as just 2 realms, it was a full 5 orders. This was because a 9th order Earth-grade secret art was only equivalent to a 6th order Heaven-grade secret art. Both of them were cultivators who had opened 180 apertures. The difference in cultivation was too great. If not for Heaven's Secret's balance and suppression, any master like Li Baxin could easily defeat the myriad demons' ridge cultivators in the outermost area. After waiting for a while, fourth senior brother replied, telling Lu Yi to go with the flow. He still had some matters to attend to and would come to find him when he was done. Above the vast chess sea, streams of light swept across the surface of the sea. The leading stream of light was a gourd-like spirit artifact. Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan sat on the gourd. Both of them were injured. Feng Yuechan leaned on Li Baxin's shoulder with a pale face, coughing lightly from time to time. It seemed that her injuries were not light. There were not many streams of light following behind them, only a dozen or so, about 20 people. After ending his communication with Lu Yi, Li Baxin breathed a sigh of relief. He had always been worried about Lu Yi's safety. Now that he knew that Lu Yi was doing well, he naturally relaxed. However, Lu Yi's situation wasn't very good. Just as Lu Yi had thought before, Myriad Demon Ridge had come with a premeditated plan and naturally wouldn't be satisfied with just killing some 7th or 8th order guardian envoys. They wanted to kill the leaders of Grand Heaven Union like Li Baxin and Feng Yuchan. As long as they could kill enough of these leaders, Myriad Demon Ridge would be able to occupy the upper hand in the confrontation between the two camps in the next few decades. In the past 20 days, Grand Heaven Alliance had suffered great losses in the inner circle. Even Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan were injured. They had previously encountered a group of experts from the Myriad Demons Ridge. There were simply too many of them, so they had no choice but to escape from Chess Island. Normally, this was tantamount to courting death because flying on the sea consumed too much spirit energy. Even Li Baxin and the others couldn't guarantee that they could fly to the next Chess Island before their spirit energy ran out. But now, all the Chess Islands were in the final stages of merging. All the Chess Islands were moving towards a central point, so they had to take the risk. If they were lucky, they might be able to find the next Chess Island before their spirit energy ran out. Of course, the premise was that the Chess Islands weren't occupied by the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators. Otherwise, they would be courting death. Senior brother, I'm afraid I can't do it. Feng Yuechan's weak voice sounded, gasping for breath. Senior brother, it's so good to have met you in this life. Li Baxin looked solemn and sighed. Don't be silly. I can feel it. Senior brother, I want to return to the sect. I will take you back to the sect. Li Baxin lowered his head. After returning to the sect, cough cough, let's get married. Asterisk pa. Asterisk Li Baxin slapped Feng Yuechan's smooth forehead with a backhand. Feng Yuechan covered her forehead, feeling wronged. I'm about to die. Why did you hit me? Li Baxin looked at her angrily. Do you think I don't know that your mother put on a treasure robe for you before we came? Feng Yuechan's face turned red. I wore it inside. How did you know, senior brother? Hey, there's a chess island over there. We're saved. Li Baxin suddenly looked in a direction with bright eyes. Following his actions, the gourd's spiritual artifact carried him and Feng Yuechan toward the chess island. More than a dozen streams of light followed closely behind. Loud buzzing sounds were heard continuously. When the entire chess island stopped, the final merging was completed. Looking down from the sky, the scattered islands on the chess island could no longer be seen. There was only a huge continent. Everywhere in the continent, the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered together and began to move almost at the same time. They began to clear the outer regions of the continent in a way that they had agreed upon earlier. Teams of varying numbers began to search for the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators either clockwise or counterclockwise. Not only were the cultivators in the outer area affected, but the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators in the inner area and the inner area were also affected. In an instant, the entire continent seemed to have turned into a huge millstone. The myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were activating the millstone's power. Once they found traces of the Grand Heaven Alliance's cultivators, the millstone's spinning force would crush all of their enemies. Before the final merging of the continent was completed, the 300 Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators on the chess island where Lu Yi was located began to formulate their next plan. Now Lu Yi and the others were faced with two choices. One was to wait on the spot. After all, Lu Yi and the others had managed this place for more than 20 days. Not to mention other things, Hua Ci had made all kinds of arrangements here. Moreover, Lu Yi had constructed more than a dozen huge spirit-gathering spiritual runes here to facilitate killing enemies and recovery. Therefore, if they waited on the spot, they would have a huge advantage whether it was letting the other Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators come over or waiting for the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators to walk into the trap. However, if they did that, the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who were scattered outside would face more danger. This was because their team had the largest number of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators. If they did not take action, the other small teams would definitely be surrounded and annihilated by the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. For the time being, they did not know how many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were still alive. However, it was definitely more than the Grand Heaven Alliance. Therefore, the second choice for their team was to take the initiative to attack. While searching for the enemy's tracks, they would absorb their own cultivators to strengthen their forces. Those who came to participate in the defense of Spirit Creek were the guardian envoys and deputy envoys of the various sections. Even if they had not participated in such a large-scale operation before, they still had some foresight. Therefore, after a brief discussion, they almost reached a consensus. That was to give up the various advantages here and take the initiative to attack. This was to save people and at the same time, to save themselves. Otherwise, when the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators cleaned up the periphery, they would definitely launch an attack here. When that time came, it would not be just 100 or 200 people, but 1,000 or 2,000 people. After the plan was decided, the 300-plus people were divided into more than 30 small teams. Each team had about 10 people. They would cooperate with each other and work closely together. After choosing a direction, the 300-plus people set off with a rumble. At the same time, messages were sent out to inform the small teams scattered outside of the continent about their movement trajectory, asking them to find an opportunity to gather. Lu Yi and Hua Ci were naturally in a team. Lan Yudi, Gao Tai, Lu Yushan and his junior sister were also in the team. The remaining few were responsible for protecting Hua Ci. Everyone was running at full speed. Only Hua Ci and Lu Yushan's junior sister were riding on a mechanical wolf, looking relaxed. This was a mechanical creation of the senior brother and junior sister, which consumed spirit stones and some spiritual power. It could be used as a means of transportation. Its speed was not too fast, but it was not too slow either. Its advantage was that it could save physical strength. Lu Yi more or less regretted not bringing Hu Per along. Previously, he had considered the possibility of exposing his identity if he brought Hu Per along. However, no one knew that the terrain of the defense of Spirit Creek was the Chess Sea. In a place like the Chess Sea, it did not matter whether one's identity was exposed or not. After all, it was a movement between the chess islands. Hua Ci's mechanical wolf was covered with storage bags. There were no less than 100 of them. This was the result of Hua Ci's efforts to tactfully refuse. If it were not for the fact that she could not carry them all, she would probably have hundreds of storage bags by now. This time, the defense of Spirit Creek, Hua Ci had earned a lot. Not only did she earn these storage bags, but most of the cultivators from the various large sects had also received her treatment. she had earned even more favors. Back when she had been a rogue cultivator, she had been completely unknown. However, after the battle to defend Spirit Stream Garrison, many of the Guardian emissaries and deputy emissaries from various sects had come to know of her. Other things aside, if she went anywhere on the Spirit Stream Garrison, she would definitely be protected by other sections. Of course, it was the same for Louis. The Spirit Gathering's spirit tattoos he had constructed had greatly facilitated the recovery of the cultivators on his side. The two's gains this time had nothing to do with the protection of the Jade Blood sect. They had earned it with their own abilities. It could be said that they had won glory for their sect. 30 miles ahead, there are senior brothers from Grand Heaven Alliance being hunted down. They're heading towards us. Everyone, prepare for battle. A roar suddenly came from the front. The continent had been formed, and the sun was hanging high in the sky. With vague positioning and communication methods, it was easy for cultivators to determine each other's location. Kill them until they piss in their pants, someone shouted. Then, a group of cultivators from the Grand Sky Alliance ran out like bandits going down the mountain. Liu Yi didn't run 30 miles because they were facing each other. After a dozen miles, he felt the fluctuation of spiritual power in front of him. It must be the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance who were being chased and were resisting the enemy's attack. Since they were being hunted down, the situation was naturally not optimistic. However, after receiving support from the cultivators on his side, the situation immediately reversed. When the cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge saw that the situation was not right, they hastily exchanged blows. After leaving behind some corpses, they turned around and fled. Those who were being hunted down became those who were running away, and those who were running away became the ones being hunted down. The scene was extremely lively. Liu Yi warned Hua Xiai. His figure shot out like an arrow, passing by one cultivator after another. It didn't take long for him to catch up with the fleeing enemies. He opened up a path with spells, knocked down the enemies, and hacked down with his saber. He didn't even have time to collect the spoils of war before he continued to pursue. Chapter 196. Kill the enemy, rest, set off, kill the enemy again, rest. The number of people on their side continued to grow. In the periphery, all the cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance who received the news gathered here. Some of them successfully ran to the rendezvous point, while some were intercepted and suffered heavy losses. There had never been a Spirit Creek Garrison battle that developed like this. In the previous Spirit Creek Garrison battles, even if cultivators from the same camp cooperated, they would at most form a team of no more than 10 people. After all, when the number of people increased, many things would become chaotic. The spoils of war after killing the enemy, the good things found, and the merit points would be difficult to distribute. However, this time, due to the pressure created by Myriad Demon Ridge, the entire Grand Heaven Alliance worked together. A good Spirit Creek Garrison battle developed into a war between the cultivators from both sides. Myriad Demon Ridge didn't realize the seriousness of the problem at first. Currently, the active Myriad Demon Ridge teams were all triumphant and invincible. In their minds, Myriad Demon Ridge had an absolute advantage this time by relying on the bone piece. After the final merger of the continents, they only needed to clean up the remaining enemies. Then the entire continent would be their world. However, as time passed and the news continued to spread, the Myriad Devil Ridge suddenly realized that there was a team of a few hundred people gathered in the Grand Heaven Alliance. They were constantly sweeping around the outer circle. Many teams from the Myriad Devil Ridge had already encountered them, and each time, they suffered heavy casualties. The situation was different from what they expected. Not only did Myriad Demon Ridge fail to control the situation, but they were also beaten to a pulp. Myriad Demon Ridge teams of varying numbers also began to converge. However, it was obviously impossible to gather enough manpower to fight against Grand Heaven Alliance at this moment. After a few days of killing, Myriad Demon Ridge's original advantage in numbers was gone. In the periphery, Grand Heaven Alliance had the advantage in numbers. In the end, the situation developed into two groups of cultivators chasing each other around the periphery of the continent. On the 6th day after the continent was formed, the travel-worn Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators stopped. Now, there were more than 1,000 cultivators in their camp. Not only were there cultivators from the outer circle, but there were also cultivators from the inner circle. Their cultivations might be 8th order, 9th order, or even heaven-grade secret arts. Recently, they had not been having a good time. They had been fleeing pathetically under the pursuit of the experts of the Myriad Demons Ridge. When they heard that their own camp was developing well in the outer circle, they ran over to seek shelter. Naturally, everyone welcomed them. Even though these cultivators with profound cultivation bases would be able to unleash about the same level of power as everyone else in the outer circle due to Tianji's mediation, an additional person would always be an additional source of power. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the survival rate of the cultivators in the outer circle to exceed 1,000. The number of cultivators continued to increase as more and more cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance rushed out from the interior of the continent. In the past, these high-level cultivators would only move in areas that were suitable for them to display their strength. They wouldn't easily go to areas where low-level cultivators were active. This was the same reason why Cloud River tier and True Lake tier cultivators wouldn't force their way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. Cultivation wasn't easy. If they died in the hands of an enemy of the same level, they could only blame themselves for not being skilled enough. However, if they were accidentally killed by someone whose cultivation base was much lower than theirs, they wouldn't be able to die in peace. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was a precedent where a True Lake tier cultivator was killed by a Spirit Stream tier cultivator. This caused the sect to lose a lot of face and became the laughingstock of the cultivation world. Right now, the Grand Heaven Alliance was chasing after a group of about 600 cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge. They were the only cultivators left in the outer circle. The reason why they stopped was because the ghost cultivators who were temporarily acting as scouts at the front sent back some information. The 6 factions of cultivators each had their own advantages. The ghost cultivators ran the fastest and were good at sneaking, assassinating, and tracking. Spying on the enemy and tracking the enemy's whereabouts naturally fell on the ghost cultivators. Right now, the Grand Heaven Alliance's group had expanded to 1,000 people. Considering that this was already a war, everyone temporarily elected a decision-making circle a few days ago. This decision-making circle was made up of a total of 9 people who represented the 9 continents of the 9 continents. The strength of the 9 people wasn't stronger than the others. It was only related to the prestige of the sect and their respective connections. 8 of them were from rank 7 sections. Only Lu Yi was from a rank 9 sect and represented the War Province. Furthermore, his cultivation base was the lowest. However, no one had any objections. This was because the Grand Heaven Alliance's current situation could be said to have developed step by step with the 2 people from the Jade Blood sect as the core. Without Lu Yi and Hua Xi's various miraculous methods, the Grand Heaven Alliance would have lost the ability to compete with the Myriad Demons Ridge. Right now, the 9 people gathered together and stood at a high point, looking into the distance. A young cultivator said, according to the information sent back by the ghost cultivators, many people from the Myriad Demons Ridge ran over from the inner area to join them. Right now, there are about 800 people over there and they're reorganizing. It seems like they want to fight to the death with us. These days, the Myriad Demons Ridge was really angry. They didn't know how the originally good situation developed into this. They were even chased by the Grand Heaven Alliance like dogs. They felt very aggrieved. Seeing that the remaining Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators in the outer area were unable to fight against the Grand Heaven Alliance, the cultivators in the inner area couldn't sit still anymore. They sent out a group of people to join the low-level cultivators on their side and prepared to fight against the Grand Heaven Alliance. After the 2 groups joined, there were about 800 people. In this way, the difference in the number of cultivators between the 2 camps wasn't that big. Even if the Grand Heaven Alliance had a slight advantage, they wouldn't have much of an advantage if they really fought. Moreover, the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators weren't just waiting there. They would also set up some methods, such as letting formation cultivators set up formations. As long as there was enough time, they could set up all kinds of formations over there and wait for the enemy to be exhausted. They would reduce the disadvantage of the number of people. If the Grand Heaven Alliance dared to attack, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Under normal circumstances, no matter which side it was, they wouldn't dare to act rashly in such a situation. However, the ghost cultivators also discovered another interesting thing, which was the position that the Myriad Demons Ridge occupied now. After the young man finished speaking, he turned to look at Lu Yi. "Junior brother Lu Yi, don't you think that position is a bit familiar?" At this moment, Lu Yi was using his eyesight to look over there. He compared the surrounding terrain and even looked at the sun in the sky. He nodded and said, "That's the chess island that we were at before." He and Hua Xi appeared there as soon as they entered the chess ocean. After that, they stayed there for close to 20 days. They were more familiar with that position than anyone else. He and Hua Xi stood at the high point there many times to observe the surroundings. "In other words, we've already circled around and come back?" A short man touched his head. The young man said with a smile, "That's right. We've come back again." "I understand now." Another woman's eyes lit up. "It's the spirit gathering formation that junior brother Lu Yi left behind. These bad guys from the Myriad Demons Ridge have been running for days and have consumed a lot of energy. Now that they suddenly found such a place with good feng shui, they definitely won't be willing to leave. They'll recover faster if they stay there. No wonder they dare to stop." Lu Ye's expression was a bit strange. After the final merger of the chess island, everyone decided to take the initiative to attack. He and Hua Xi had left all kinds of traps there. He never thought that they would become the reason for the enemies to stay there. They didn't want to walk on the path to heaven but insisted on barging into the door to hell. If the people from the Myriad Demons Ridge continued to run, the Haotian Alliance wouldn't be able to do anything to them. However, they chose to stay in that place. "Junior brother Lu Yi, you've made a great contribution this time," the female cultivator said excitedly. "Everyone, it's time to show the might of our Haotian Alliance." The young man's expression turned serious. "There's no time to lose. I think we should attack that place immediately. What do you think?" What else could they think? The others all agreed. The sooner, the better. If they delayed any longer, the enemies would have more traps. This battle might be the last large-scale collision between the two camps. The number of people participating in the battle would be close to 2,000. After this battle, if everything went well, the Myriad Demons Ridge would no longer have the capital to fight against the Haotian Alliance in the outer circle. If they wanted to kill as many enemies as possible, they needed to plan carefully. The 9 of them gathered here to discuss. Suddenly, Lu Yi checked his battlefield imprint and received a message. A moment later, he frowned. "Everyone, there might be a trap over there." "What do you mean?" The others looked at him. "My 4th senior brother just sent me a message. He found a group of about 300 cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge lying in ambush in a forest. They seem to be waiting for something. Judging from their position, they're only 20 miles away from us. Also, those people should have gathered from the inner circle." When they heard this, they looked at each other and immediately understood the plan of the Myriad Demons Ridge. The message came from Li Baxian, so it shouldn't be wrong. If 300 reinforcements from the Myriad Demons Ridge arrived during the battle, it was very likely that the Haotian Alliance would be caught off guard. Did they discover the traps left behind over there? The others immediately thought of this possibility. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and shook his head. "Not necessarily. The mushrooms that Hua Xi planted are real mushrooms. Even if the people from the Myriad Demons Ridge discovered them, they wouldn't care too much. Hua Xi's methods didn't show any signs of being exposed. Moreover, even if the people from the Myriad Demons Ridge noticed the abnormality of those mushrooms, they can make up for it in time with the help of senior brother Lu and the others' mechanical creations. Therefore, the Myriad Demons Ridge is purely scheming against us. If that's the case, we'll beat them at their own game." Soon, a plan was formulated. Lu Yi contacted Li Baxian at the same time and asked him to keep an eye on the movements of the 300 cultivators and to communicate with him at any time. Li Baxian naturally agreed. Speaking of which, he also came to seek refuge with Lu Yi. When he first entered the chess sea, He said that he would look for Lu Yi after the continent was formed. However, at that time, he considered that he could protect Lu Yi. However, the development of the situation was unexpected. Now that he came here, he needed Lu Ye's protection. As a senior brother, he felt embarrassed. Chapter 197. The Haotian alliance started to move. They split into 3 groups. One group rushed forward while the other 2 flanked from the left and right. In this way, they were able to form a semi-encirclement. They left a gap for the other party. Firstly, it was unrealistic to go around the back. Secondly, they were afraid that if they forced too much, it would stimulate the enemy's fighting spirit. Everyone knew the most basic common sense of encircling 3 groups and blocking one. The cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge immediately sensed the movement. However, they did not intend to escape. Instead, they rubbed their palms together and prepared to avenge their humiliation. Under the arrangement of the troops, the Myriad Devil Ridge's side quickly formed a tight formation, waiting for the attack. The 3 groups of Haotian alliance cultivators slowly arrived at their designated positions and waited quietly. A dazzling beam of light suddenly shot up to the sky. It was Lu Yushan's Thunder Dragon cannon. At the same time, it was also a signal. The moment the roar sounded, thousands of cultivators from the Haotian alliance rushed forward together with a shocking momentum. Spells and flying lights from imperial weapons began to collide in midair. The Haotian alliance quickly gained the upper hand with their advantage in numbers. Although it was not too obvious, it did form a certain degree of suppression on the Myriad Devil Ridge. As time passed, and the Myriad Devil Ridge intentionally retreated, the encirclement began to shrink. The cultivators from both sides officially collided. The small groups were entangled with each other and it was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Lu Yi and Hua Ci stayed at the back and did not participate in this battle. They were waiting for a message. If that was really a trap set by the Myriad Devil Ridge, then the message should arrive soon. Just as the 2 groups of cultivators were fighting fiercely, Lu Yi felt a movement in his battlefield mark. He lowered his head to check and then nodded to Hua Ci. "It's our turn." 4th senior brother sent a message saying that the 3 million cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge who were lying in ambush 20 miles away had already moved out. Obviously, they wanted to kill their way over while the 2 groups were busy fighting. In this way, they could tear apart the Haotian alliance's formation and cooperate with the cultivators on their side. As long as they could open up the situation on one of the fronts, the Myriad Devil Ridge could continue to expand their advantage and inflict heavy losses on the Haotian alliance. This was also the reason why the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were attacked were weak. Firstly, the Haotian alliance did have the advantage in numbers. Secondly, they were taking advantage of the situation. If they did not give the Haotian alliance some hope, how could they successfully carry out the next plan? Of course, with the current situation, it was unknown if they could make it in time. Lu Yi and Hua Ci each had a pair of red and green wings spread out from their backs as they soared into the sky. They quickly crossed the frontmost battlefield and arrived at the center, where they quietly floated there. For a moment, many cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge looked over. In this place where no one could fly, 2 people from the Grand Heaven Alliance suddenly flew over. Naturally, it attracted a lot of attention. The people of the Myriad Demon's Ridge immediately sensed that something was wrong. Someone immediately flew toward Lu Yi and Hua Ci. However, before he could get close, he lost his strength. The enemy was flying too high. Lu Yi raised his blade and secretly channeled his spiritual energy. He stood in front of Hua Ci. His current mission was very simple. Protect Hua Ci's safety and let her display her skills. After a brief scan, Hua Ci confirmed that the setup she had set up earlier had taken effect. She nodded and said, "Let's begin." She took a deep breath, and her full chest heaved up and down. Then, a dark green halo swept out in all directions, instantly enveloping half of the battlefield. Exclamations immediately came from below. When Hua Ci's method began to take effect, many cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge noticed that something was wrong. The spiritual energy in their bodies suddenly became obscure, as if they were suffering from the symptoms of pill toxins. This caused many people's strength to plummet in a very short period of time. If this happened under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, they were currently in a life-and-death battle with the cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. The originally evenly matched battle immediately became a life-and-death battle due to the change in spiritual energy. In just a few breaths of time, miserable screams came one after another from below. Blood and broken limbs flew everywhere. Many cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge were in trouble. "It's that woman's doing. Kill her quickly." A cultivator from the Myriad Demons Ridge shouted as he was seriously injured. The next moment his head was chopped off. With a soft sound, a stream of light shot from below. It wasn't a flying weapon but an arrow. Someone was holding a bow-shaped spirit weapon and shot an arrow at Hua Si. However, this arrow was blocked by Lu Ye's blade and didn't hurt her at all. Chi Chi Chi, the archer below, was skilled in archery. With a flick of his fingers, streams of light shot out. Lu Yi brandished the long saber in his hand, deflecting the arrows one after another, causing his hand to feel numb. After a few breaths of time, the bow-wielding cultivator was chopped into pieces by several cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Dark green halos rippled outwards. Although Hua Si had been here for many days, she had never been able to continuously activate her ability like this. The number of people participating in this battle couldn't be compared to before. If she wanted to end the battle here as soon as possible, she could only use her full strength like this. In just 10 minutes, Hua Si's face began to turn pale. At a certain moment, she softly called out, "Lu Yi." Lu Yi quickly turned around and grabbed Hua Si's waist. He took her out of the battlefield and flapped his fiery red wings, instantly leaving the battlefield. Hua Si was fine, but she had consumed too much of her spiritual power. However, before she left, the Myriad Devil Ridge couldn't hold on anymore. Originally, there were 800 cultivators gathered here, which was only 200 less than the Grand Heaven Alliance. However, the difference in numbers had expanded to more than 500. One could imagine how many casualties the Myriad Devil Ridge had suffered in this short period of time. The cultivators who were still alive fled toward the gap behind them. At this moment, the speed of their escape was very important. They didn't need to run faster than the enemy, but they just needed to be faster than their own people. The Grand Heaven Alliance couldn't chase them until they were completely annihilated. There would always be some who escaped. After 15 minutes, the battlefield was full of corpses. The smell of blood was so thick that it almost couldn't disperse. Less than 100 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance had died. The cultivators gathered and didn't chase after those who escaped. Instead, they turned around and killed toward the center of the continent. In that direction, there was a group of 300 cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge coming to help. They had received news that the Grand Heaven Alliance had taken the bait and was fighting with them. Therefore, they quickly rushed over. With their speed, they were about to reach the battlefield. However, when they looked up, they didn't see any cultivators from their side. Instead, they saw a group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who were in a killing frenzy charging towards them. The 3 million cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge were dumbfounded. Where were the 800 cultivators from their side? Until now, they had received news from the cultivators who escaped. Only 200 of the 800 cultivators were left. They were fleeing and were told to run as well. The 300 cultivators who came to help were so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. This battle was originally a trap that they had set. As long as the Grand Heaven Alliance dared to step into it, they would definitely suffer. However, the 800 cultivators were killed and scattered before they could do anything. They were simply incompetent. Although they couldn't wait to kill all those people who were running away, they also knew that they were in a bad situation. Although they were all from the inner circle and had high cultivation, they really couldn't use their strength to their advantage in this place. Numbers were the key to victory. 300 cultivators against 900 cultivators. It was obvious that they couldn't win with brute force. Therefore, without hesitation, the 300 cultivators who were rushing to the battlefield immediately turned around and prepared to escape. They didn't need to escape too far. They only needed to run for a few dozen miles and the Grand Heaven Alliance wouldn't be able to chase after them. The deeper they went, the stronger their strength would be. Most of the Grand Heaven Alliance's cultivators were low-level cultivators. If they dared to chase after them, they would be courting death. However, they didn't run far when a large formation suddenly formed and enveloped them. The large formation's lethality wasn't too strong, but the formation's power made the bodies of those who were trapped in it heavy and slow their movements. The group of cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge looked around in shock. They saw a petite female cultivator standing on a big tree and looking at them with a smile. The female cultivator also had a formation plate that was emitting a dazzling light in her hand. "Feng Yuechan," someone exclaimed, and his expression changed abruptly. Feng Yuechan alone wasn't enough to shock them, but Li Baxian was definitely in the place where Feng Yuechan appeared. There was also a group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who followed them. As expected, a low shout was heard. "Sword formation." As soon as the words were spoken, sword lights suddenly burst out from the large formation. They shuttled back and forth, bringing out a string of blood. This large formation was set up by Feng Yuechan and Li Baxian together. It was hastily formed and wasn't very powerful. However, Li Baxian integrated all of his flying swords into this formation, increasing the lethality of the formation by several levels. Another 30 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance appeared out of nowhere. They used all of their skills to harass and delay the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators' escape speed. Rumbling sounds were heard. The 900 cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance were chasing after them. Seeing this scene, the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were trapped in the large formation all showed despair. Chi-chi-chi, sounds could be heard continuously. Spells and Imperial equipment's flowing light covered the sky and covered the ground. Someone suddenly laughed out loud. "I killed a heaven level 9. I can't believe I have such a day." The killer was just an ordinary 7th order cultivator. There was a difference of 200 spirit apertures between him and a heaven grade 9th layer cultivator. Normally, he wouldn't be able to fight against such a master. However, in this special environment, the weak had defeated the strong. A heaven grade 9th layer cultivator was definitely the guardian of a large sect in the core circle. He probably wouldn't have thought that he would die at the hands of such a weakling. It wasn't just one expert that was killed by the weak. Many of the 300 people from the Myriad Devil Ridge were experts that had switched to cultivating a heaven-class cultivation technique. However, at this moment, their fire of life was withering one after another. These low-level cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance might find that their merit points had increased by tens of points as they fought. The situation was in their favor. Li Baxian raised his arm and shouted, "Little ones, it's time for revenge." Saying so, he was the first to charge forward with his sword. The masters who had followed him all the way here followed him with bloodshot eyes and murderous intent. They had been too aggrieved all this time. Only now could they vent the anger in their hearts. Chapter 198. After a great battle, less than 50 of the 300 Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who came as reinforcements managed to escape. Many of them were guardian envoys from the major sects in the core region. Even Yan Xing, who was ranked second on the Spirit Stream list, was severely injured and had to escape. Yan Xing was also unlucky. Ever since he fought with Li Baxian in the Spirit Stream battlefield, he knew that he couldn't take revenge with his own strength. The Spirit Stream battle was a great opportunity, so he had been paying attention to Li Baxian's location and movements. After the continent was formed, he immediately joined forces with the other Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators to chase after Li Baxian's whereabouts. He was just in time for this battle and was involved in it. Then, he was taught a lesson by a group of low-level cultivators who he usually wouldn't even look at. This was a victory for the Grand Heaven Alliance, and it was also a celebration for the low-level cultivators. This battle perfectly demonstrated what it meant to have the advantage in numbers. After the battle, the Grand Heaven Alliance only needed to rest for a while before they split into two groups under the leadership of the powerhouses from the core circle. They searched for and eliminated the enemy cultivators from the outer circle and the inner circle. As the news spread, more and more powerhouses from the core circle joined in. Originally, they were defeated by the people from the myriad Devil Ridge, but they didn't expect the situation to turn around. The low-level cultivators on their side were so capable. Before the merging of the continents was completed, the myriad Devil Ridge had the upper hand in terms of both high-level and low-level cultivators. Even if they had a team with the two from the Jade Blood sect as the core, they could not make up for the difference in numbers. Under such circumstances, as long as the myriad Devil Ridge was determined, the Grand Heaven Alliance's chances of survival would only become smaller and smaller. It was not possible to annihilate the entire Grand Heaven Alliance before the battle to guard Lingxi. However, it was still possible to annihilate 80 to 90% of them. This would achieve the initial goal set by the myriad Devil Ridge. In the next few decades, the Grand Heaven Alliance would lose many people who could support them and would no longer be able to compete with the myriad Devil Ridge. However, the myriad Demon's Ridge had been careless after all. With the situation in their favor, everyone had relaxed a little. In other words, no one had expected that there would be such an invincible team of low-level cultivators. In just a few days, this team swept through the outer circle of the continent and killed the people from the myriad Devil Ridge. In the final battle, they even killed a large number of high-level cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge. As a result, the advantageous situation was changed. The Grand Heaven Alliance definitely had the advantage in terms of low-level cultivators, and it was far more than the myriad Devil Ridge. In terms of high-level cultivators, they were about the same. After all, the Grand Heaven Alliance had suffered great losses in the past 20 days. However, in the entire Chess Sea continent, the situation of the Haotian Alliance had been completely revived. Now, it was the Haotian Alliance's turn to capture the cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge. Little junior brother, you and junior sister Hua Si have won a lot of face for the sect this time. This old man is probably smiling in his dreams. Li Baxian's voice rang out. After the previous battle, he and Feng Yuechan did not participate in the follow-up. Instead, they found Lu Yi, who was protecting Hua Si. Then himself. It's mainly because of Hua Si. Lu Yi replied vaguely as he chewed on his jerky. This was the truth. The most he could do was to provide spirit-gathering runes for the cultivators on his side to recover. Not only could Hua Si heal others, she could also help them kill their enemies. Li Baxian turned to look at Hua Si, who was whispering to Feng Yuechan. He nodded. Junior sister Hua Si contributed the most. You're not insignificant either. He winked at Lu Yi. Where did you find this junior sister? Find a few more later. Lu Ye's cheeks puffed up as he ate in big mouthfuls. Li Baxian patted his shoulder. With you guys in the sect, I'm much more relieved. Let's go. I'll take you on a treasure hunt. Lu Yi was instantly interested. He hurriedly gulped down the food in his mouth. His throat slid down slowly. What treasure hunt? I don't know. It depends on luck. Li Baxian smiled gently. He grabbed his wine gourd and threw it to Lu Yi. Lu Yi looked around, opened the gourd, and took a sip. Suddenly, his stomach felt like it was on fire. At the same time, a feeling of dizziness rushed to the top of his head. He immediately staggered. In a panic, he hurriedly changed his secret art and activated Gluttonous Meal. A buzzing sound came from his stomach as he dispelled the drunkenness. After a while, he stood firm and shook his head. So strong. He threw the wine gourd to Li Baxian. He knew that he couldn't drink too much of this wine. Drinking one mouthful was his limit. Li Baxian laughed. Although it was a treasure hunt, they couldn't find anything good. Perhaps there were many precious treasures before, but as the cultivators of both camps continued to wander and search, all the good things were taken away. Along the way, Hua Si found a lot of herbs with her medical skills. She was accompanied by a mechanical wolf given to her by Lu Yushan's junior sister. The mechanical wolf was full of storage bags. After an hour, Li Baxian, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped and glanced in a certain direction. He smiled and asked, Little junior brother, can you kill an 8th order realm cultivator? Lu Yi didn't know why he asked this question. He pondered for a moment and said, I should be able to. Can you really kill one? Li Baxian was a little surprised. On the Golden Light, Lu Yi was a 5th-order cultivator. He once said that if he went all out, he could kill a 7th-order cultivator. Facts proved that he did have such ability. Although he didn't kill a 7th-order cultivator at that time, he fought 43 battles in a row. In the last battle, he even killed the Sacred Flame Sect Saintess who destroyed her spirit aperture. Now that Lu Yi was a 6th-order cultivator, Li Baxian just remembered Lu Ye's words and asked casually. He didn't expect Lu Yi to give such an answer. Do you know that after a cultivator reaches the 7th order, every time they break through to the next realm, their strength will increase more than before? Li Baxian looked at him seriously and nodded. In that case, let this brother open his eyes. While Lu Yi was confused, he saw Li Baxian look in a certain direction. Do you want to come out on your own, or do you want me to force you out? As soon as this was said, Feng Yuechan's figure suddenly fluttered and landed in a certain direction. After standing still, he and Li Baxian stared at the same spot. Lu Yi followed their gazes but couldn't see anything. There was only a big rock there. But in next to no time, something that shocked him occurred. Accompanied by a wave of distortion in the air beside the boulder, a thin figure appeared. It was a young man with a gloomy expression. He had a hooked nose, and his face was gloomy to the point it was about to drip water. Lu Yi didn't know what method he used to hide here perfectly. If Li Baxian hadn't seen through him at a glance, Lu Yi wouldn't have been able to find him even if he stepped on the big rock. Li Baxian laughed. It's you. It looked like they knew each other. The Flowing Cloud sect has no enmity with the Pill Heart sect and the Jade Blood sect. Our Flowing Cloud sect didn't participate in the Battle of the Golden Light Summit. Li Baxian, tell me what you want. I just want to live, said the gloomy young man. Li Baxian raised his hand and scratched his chin, chuckling. Isn't the Flowing Cloud sect not participating because war was declared? Besides, you're from the Myriad Devil Ridge and I'm from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Our camps are natural opposites. Didn't your grandfather tell you that the difference in camps is the reason for killing? The young man's tone became serious. Do you have to do this? As he spoke, he glanced at Lu Yi and Hua Xiai. Obviously, he wanted to make an issue out of them. He wasn't weak, but Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan weren't easy to deal with. This pair of B***Chis were always inseparable. Offending one was equivalent to offending two. No one could afford to offend them. Now, a large number of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were constantly searching for traces of the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it was. He originally wanted to escape to the periphery because the safest place in the entire continent was the periphery. Who would have thought that he would meet Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan here? His luck was so bad that he could choke on water. I'll show you a way out. Do you want to take it? Li Baxian looked at him with a smile. What? Li Baxian patted Lu Ye's shoulder. Fight with my junior brother. If you win, I'll let you go. Lu Yi and the young man were stunned. Lu Yi finally understood what his 4th senior brother meant when he asked him that question. The young man didn't look happy. Instead, he said angrily, Li Baxian, are you crazy? If I hurt or kill this little guy, can I still leave? He had heard about the incident at the Golden Light Summit, and had also deeply experienced the Jade Blood sect's style of protecting their own. That true lake stage expert killed his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield as he pleased, and even endured the damage from the soul-extinguishing godly lightning to kill a group of low-level cultivators. In the entire 9 continents, which sect's true lake stage expert would dare to do such a despicable thing? Only the Jade Blood sect. Therefore, when Li Baxian asked him to fight with Lu Yi, not only was he not happy, he even felt that he was being made fun of. As the old saying goes, when you're under someone else's roof, you have to lower your head. Looks like you don't understand your situation. Li Baxian lowered his eyes slightly. On the other side, spiritual power surged in Feng Yuechan's hand. A ball of compressed flame-like thing was tossed around in her small hand. The young man's eyes twitched. He knew that if he didn't agree, he would be besieged by the number 1 and number 10 on the Spirit Stream list. This was a mixed pair of sword cultivators and spell cultivators. At that time, there would be no way for him to survive. If I beat this little guy, will you really let me go? I guarantee it with my junior brother's reputation. Li Baxin patted Lu Ye's shoulder. Lu Yi frowned. Why did he have to guarantee it with his reputation? From another point of view, did his fourth senior brother not have much credibility? This was a big problem. Don't play such a childish game. Besides you, there's still Feng Yuechun. As for her, I guarantee it with my junior sister's reputation. Li Baxin pointed at Hua Si, who was standing to the side. Hua Si smiled very innocently. The young man said, "Please make a heavenly oath." "Cut the crap." Li Baxin angrily shouted, "If I tell you to fight, then fight. So much nonsense, be careful or I'll send you flying with my sword." The young man suddenly felt extremely sullen. Who are you putting on this humiliated look for? If you fight with my junior brother, if you're lucky, you can drag someone down with you. Isn't this what you're thinking? Li Baxin coldly snorted, exposing the young man's thoughts. Chapter 199. When he was discovered by Li Baxin, this young man knew that he had no way out, so he had put on all kinds of gestures in order to numb Li Baxin. Now that he had been exposed, he didn't say anything else and simply waved the two curved blades in his hands and assumed a fighting stance. Then come. Lu Yi raised his hand and placed it on the hilt, gently gripping it. Li Baxin's voice sounded in his ear, "Little junior brother, be careful, this guy is a ghost cultivator. Don't underestimate him just because he's an 8th order cultivator. In fact, his true cultivation is at the 7th order heaven grade and he has opened more than 240 spirit apertures. Of course, this position is suppressed by heaven's fate, so the strength he can display is only at the level of an ordinary 8th order, but his killing experience won't be suppressed, and his strength and speed are not comparable to an ordinary 8th order cultivator. Even if you can defeat an ordinary 8th order cultivator, you may not necessarily be his opponent." "I know," Lu Yi responded, and as soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards the gloomy young man. He didn't care why Li Baxin had made him face such an opponent alone, but now that the Spirit Stream garrison battle was coming to an end, he had to cherish this rare opportunity to kill his enemy. Almost at the same time Lu Yi moved, a stream of light shot out and arrived in front of him in an instant. Unsheathing his long saber, Lu Yi slashed out, causing sparks to fly. Lu Yi felt a strong force hit him head-on, causing the web between his thumb and forefinger to split open and the mountain blade in his hand to be knocked back. Following this force, Lu Yi raised his long saber and slashed away the flowing light that was about to slash at his chest. This stream of light was actually one of the curved blades in his opponent's hand. The blow just now was just the power of his opponent's imperial artifact. As the curved blade spun through the air, a wound appeared on Lu Ye's chest, from which blood flowed out. It was obvious he had been injured by his opponent's curved blade. Before he could stabilize himself, a figure flashed in front of him and the gloomy young man rushed forward at an incredible speed. Ghost cultivators were known for their speed, not to mention that this was a 7th order heaven-grade ghost cultivator. Although heaven's secret suppression had limited him to the level of an 8th order cultivator, his speed was still not something an ordinary 8th order cultivator could match. The other curved blade in his opponent's hand slashed towards Lu Ye's face. Lu Yi raised his blade to block, but a loud clang rang out as his figure staggered backwards. At the same time, a strong wind blew from behind his head as the curved blade he had sent flying flew back towards him. The Tao of equipment manipulation was simply unfathomable to Lu Yin. Hua Si looked nervous. Li Baxin had already grasped a sword light in his hand. Although he had asked Lu Yi to fight this ghost cultivator, he would not just sit by and watch. If Lu Ye's life was really in danger, he would step in. Just as the scimitar was about to hit the back of Lu Ye's head, a spirit pattern suddenly appeared. At the same time, Lu Ye's head sank down, narrowly avoiding the blow. A few broken hairs fluttered in the wind. At the same time, the long blade in his hand stabbed forward. A fiery red spirit chi wrapped around it as the sharpness spirit pattern strengthened it. The ghost cultivator sidestepped the blow and flipped the scimitar in his hand like a living creature, cutting the flesh on Lu Ye's arm at an incredible angle, causing blood to flow out. The battle had only been going on for 3 breaths, but Lu Yi already had 2 wounds on his body. Although the injuries were not serious, it could be seen that the gap between their strengths was not small. If they continued to fight like this, Lu Ye's situation would only get worse. Feng Yuechan glanced at Li Baxian leisurely, asking for his opinion. Li Baxian slowly shook his head. Now was not the time to intervene. The reason why he wanted Lu Yi to deal with this ghost cultivator was mainly because the opportunity was rare. Although he had taught Lu Yi for 20 days in the Blue Blood sect, it was still the teaching of a senior brother. Even if he was ruthless and injured Lu Yi repeatedly, it was difficult for Lu Yi to truly experience the feeling of life and death because both of them knew that Li Baxian could not really kill him. But the current situation was different. Lu Yi was fighting a myriad demon ridge cultivator. If he was not careful enough, he could really die. As a weapon cultivator, if he could not get used to the feeling of walking on the edge of life and death, it would be difficult for him to break through. However, the current situation made Li Baxian a little hesitant, wondering if he had been too hasty. The opponent he had chosen for Lu Yi was too strong. Little junior brother might have a chance against an ordinary 8th order cultivator with his current strength, but facing this opponent was really difficult. Fortunately, although Lu Yi was completely at a disadvantage, his fighting spirit did not diminish at all. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged several moves. The ghost cultivator was stronger than Lu Yi in both speed and strength. Coupled with the fact that he could use Imperial Artifact, Lu Yi was in a difficult situation. He slowly familiarized himself with his opponent's rhythm. Although he could not reverse the situation, he was able to block the power of his opponent's Imperial Artifact several times with his Imperial Spirit Rune and take advantage of the situation to counterattack. During the exchange of blows, the ghost cultivator suddenly retracted the curved blade that he had sent flying. He realized that this Blue Blood sect cultivator, who was famous in Golden Light Peak, was indeed powerful. His true strength was definitely not just a 6th order cultivator. He thought that he could easily deal with his opponent and had already made up his mind to capture Lu Yi and hold him hostage in exchange for his own life. He did not dare to delay any longer. Feng Yuechan and Li Baxian were eyeing him covetously, giving him a lot of pressure. In this kind of close combat, the power of his Imperial Artifact was not great, so it was better to withdraw it. With the 2 sabers in hand, his attack speed suddenly increased a lot. Lu Yi was immediately unlucky, with wounds appearing on his body. But as the number of wounds increased, the speed and strength of his attacks also increased, and the spirit energy attached to the sabers became much denser. After a dozen breaths, Lu Yi slowly stabilized his footing and was actually able to exchange blows with his opponent. The ghost cultivator was surprised. He could not understand how Lu Yi could improve so much in such a short period of time. After another dozen breaths, he was shocked to find that he was beginning to fall into a disadvantage in terms of speed and strength. Not only was Lu Yi injured when his spirit artifacts collided, but he was also gradually getting injured. At this moment, the mountain plate saber's blade was red, as if it had drunk enough blood. If one looked carefully, they would find that there was a faint blood chi rising from Lu Ye's body. The ghost cultivator finally realized that something was wrong and exclaimed, "A blood artifact?" A blood artifact was a special kind of spirit artifact that was branded with a blood sacrifice spirit mark. When the owner was injured or offered up his own blood, the blood artifact would become stronger. The more blood the blood artifact devoured, the more powerful it would become. Therefore, when he saw the changes in Lu Ye's mountain plate saber, the ghost cultivator thought that it was a blood artifact. A blood artifact was powerful, but once it was activated, it would be extremely dangerous to the user because it would continuously devour blood. If one was not careful, they would die from blood loss. Therefore, in the cultivation world, blood artifacts were not very popular, and ordinary cultivators would not use them. Even the ghost cultivators could see that something was wrong with the saber. Naturally, Li Baxian could see it as well. His expression became serious. He only wanted Lu Yi to gain some experience in fighting against powerful enemies. Who would have thought that his junior brother would even use his blood treasure? This was not good. If his foundation and vitality were damaged because of this, his second senior sister would definitely smash his head into smithereens. It's not a blood artifact. Fourth senior brother, don't worry. Hua Xi's voice sounded. What is that? Li Baxian asked. Hua Xi explained, Lu Yi has mastered a blood-stained spirit mark. What he's activating now is probably the power of that spirit mark. Previously, Lu Yi had revealed to Madame Yun that he had mastered 4 spirit marks. Hua Xi was there at that time, so she naturally remembered. Blood stain. Li Baxian frowned. He didn't know much about spirit marks and couldn't calm down to study them. Therefore, he didn't know what the blood-stained spirit mark was. However, it was fine as long as the saber wasn't a blood artifact. Clanging sounds could be heard as the battle continued. Lu Ye's body was covered in wounds, but the strange thing was that all the blood that flowed out of his wounds turned into a bloody mist. Not a single drop fell. If Lu Ye's clothes were to be ripped apart, one would be able to see a complex spirit pattern slowly rotating on his chest. The spirit pattern was completely formed by blood, and a bloody mist lingered around his body, causing his eyes to turn scarlet. The blood-stained spirit mark wasn't applied to the mountain plate saber, but to his own body. As his blood continued to turn into a mist, Lu Ye's attacks became faster and faster, and his strength grew fiercer and fiercer. He had long since surpassed his body's limits. The situation had completely reversed. The ghost cultivator, who had originally held the upper hand, could only parry Lu Ye's attacks. He couldn't retaliate at all. After a few moments of intense battle, the ghost cultivator's chest was struck by Lu Ye's saber. A miserable cry rang out as the ghost cultivator staggered a few steps back. Blood flowed from the huge wound on his chest. When he looked up, he saw a pair of flickering red eyes in front of him. Wrapped in a bloody mist, Lu Ye's saber slashed down like a storm. He roared as he raised his spirit artifact. The sound of the blade cutting through flesh rang out. Lu Yi raised his saber and flashed behind the ghost cultivator. He landed lightly on the ground, shook off the blood on the mountain plate saber, and sheathed it. The ghost cultivator's body stiffened. He maintained his defensive posture, then stiffly fell to the ground. Blood flowed from his body. The bloody mist wrapped around Lu Yi dispersed, revealing his figure. His body went soft, and before he could fall to the ground, Li Baxian had already supported him. I'm exhausted, Lu Yi explained. His face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had lost too much blood. Li Baxian's expression was complicated. After a long time, he said, Little junior brother, you fought too hard. He never expected such a result. Even when Lu Yi said that he could kill an 8th order cultivator, he thought it was just the arrogance of a young man. He was prepared to intervene at any time. But in the end, his little junior brother really killed the ghost cultivator. He single-handedly killed the ghost cultivator. That was too fierce. That was a 7th order heaven-grade cultivator. Even if he was suppressed, he wouldn't be worse than an ordinary 9th order cultivator. Li Baxian suddenly realized that he seemed to have underestimated his little junior brother. Chapter 200. In the wilderness, Lu Yi was lying flat on a large rock. Hua Xi was kneeling beside him, gently rubbing his arm. As she did so, streams of pure wood spirit energy poured into Lu Ye's body, penetrating deep into his muscles and repairing the hidden injuries that were invisible to the naked eye. Li Baxian sat awkwardly to the side, while Feng Yuechan stood guard not far away. A formation had been set up around them. There was no need to look for any treasures now. After the battle just now, Lu Yi was seriously injured, but he was completely exhausted. He felt his flesh and blood aching all over. At this moment, he didn't even have the strength to move a finger. When Lu Yi obtained the blood-stained spirit pattern, he knew that he had one more method to deal with a strong enemy, but he hadn't had the chance to try it until now. This spirit pattern was indeed amazing. It could increase one's strength by devouring Lu Ye's blood. The more blood it devoured, the greater the improvement. Just by looking at the battle just now, Lu Yi was not the ghost cultivator's opponent at all. Whether it was strength or speed, the ghost cultivator was much stronger than him, and the ghost cultivator could even use a flying tool. However, as the blood-stained spirit pattern continued to work, the gap between them was slowly closed, and Lu Yi even surpassed the ghost cultivator. Moreover, Lu Yi felt that the blood-stained spirit pattern had not reached its limit. If he could devour more blood, his improvement would be even greater. In the future, if he encountered an opponent stronger than him, as long as he wasn't instantly killed, he would have a chance to turn defeat into victory. The blood-stained spirit pattern was strong enough, but the price was also obvious. Because he had displayed strength beyond his limit, Lu Ye's muscles were damaged and he had lost too much blood. Moreover, maintaining the blood-stained spirit pattern consumed a lot of spirit energy. This thing was different from sharpness and defense. It had to be maintained continuously. If Lu Yi hadn't opened more than 80 apertures and had a lot of spirit energy stored in his body, he wouldn't have been qualified to use this spirit pattern in battle. This was a one-time deal. It could also be regarded as a trump card. Once it was used, it would either kill the enemy or himself. This was the result of Lu Ye's recent practice of using the scale armor to temper his body. Every time he cultivated in the cultivation room, he would place the scale armor in the groove of the spirit gathering formation. Using the spirit gathering formation, he would stimulate the blood energy in the scale armor to devour and refine it to temper his body. Otherwise, the damage this time would have been even more serious. With Hua Xi's help, Lu Yi slowly recovered some of her strength. She took out some jerky and ate it while enjoying Hua Xi's treatment. After that battle, he felt so hungry that he could eat a cow. With a large amount of food in his stomach, Lu Ye's face finally regained some color. Half a day later, he slowly got up. Although he still felt weak, there were no major problems. The aftereffects of using bloodstain were too great. Lu Yi secretly decided that he would not use this thing unless it was absolutely necessary. Li Baxin looked at him from the side and asked with concern, "How do you feel?" "It's great. Thank you, senior brother." If it wasn't for Li Baxin looking after him, he really wouldn't have had the chance to fight with such an expert. After tasting the sweetness of victory, he couldn't help but want Li Baxin to take him to find those lone myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. This kind of life and death battle was very beneficial to one's growth. However, even with Hua Xi's treatment, he had not fully recovered, so he could only suppress the thought in his heart. "If there's nothing serious, I'll take you to see something good." "Sure." The four of them continued on their way. After traveling for dozens of miles, Li Baxian's suppressed strength slowly recovered. Although he was not at his peak, flying on a magic tool was no problem for him. He threw out his wine gourd. As the spiritual power around him surged, the gourd immediately enlarged and he jumped on it. Feng Yuechan followed closely behind, and Hua Xi jumped up with her mechanical wolf. She even pulled the limp Lu Yi along. Li Baxin shouted. The gourd rose into the air and quickly flew forward. Flying on a magic tool greatly reduced the time it took to travel. The deeper they went, the less the suppression Li Baxin felt. In less than half an hour, he brought Lu Yi and the others to a place where a crowd gathered. Looking at the scale, all the Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators should have gathered here. There were traces of a great battle all around. Obviously, there had been a fierce battle here. As soon as the iconic wine gourd spirit tool appeared, it attracted many people's attention. Someone pointed at the wine gourd and laughed. Fellow Taoist Li and fellow Taoist Feng are finally here. The myriad Devil Ridge people will give up now. When the gourd landed, many people who were meditating and resting got up to greet them. Li Baxian jumped off the gourd and looked up at a big tree in front of him. "What's the situation?" A burly body cultivator replied. The myriad Devil Ridge people didn't give up and organized a few attacks. However, after being taught a few lessons, they calmed down. Now that you're here, the myriad Devil Ridge people won't dare to show up so easily. Li Baxian nodded slightly and greeted some people. On the other side, there were also many low-level cultivators chatting with Lu Yi and Hua Xi. Everyone had been fighting side by side before and many of them had been treated by Hua Xi, so they naturally had a good impression of this deputy protector of the Blue Blood sect, not to mention that Hua Xi was a gentle beauty. In the last large-scale battle with the myriad Devil Ridge, Lu Yi and Hua Xi took the risk to fly above the enemy camp and activated the arrangements they had left behind to secure victory. It could be said that Grand Heaven Alliance's current situation was due to the two people from the Jade Blood sect. These two are junior brother Yi and junior sister Hua Xi from the Jade Blood sect, right? The body cultivator who was talking to Li Baxian suddenly looked at Lu Yi. Li Baxian smiled and patted Lu Yi's shoulder. Greetings, senior brother Meng Si. I'm the guardian of the Vitality sect, 9th level heaven grade, 18th on the spirit stream list. This ranking was not low. Lu Yi and Hua Xi bowed together. As for the Vitality sect, Lu Yi was already familiar with it. It was a first-grade sect of the Grand Heaven Alliance in the War Province. Their vice sect master Pangzhen was the vice alliance master of the Grand Heaven Alliance and was in charge of all matters of the War Province's cultivation world. Meng Si nodded slightly. The descendants of famous sects are indeed extraordinary. The two of you have contributed greatly to the spirit stream battle. On behalf of the War Province's cultivation world, I thank the two of you. Saying so, he bowed solemnly to Lu Yi and Hua Xi. Behind him, a group of 8th and 9th order heaven-grade cultivators from the War Province also bowed together. Lu Yi and Hua Xi were rather flustered. Before the two of them could say anything, another cultivator with an ethereal aura said, "The cultivation world of the Ding Province thanks the two junior brothers and junior sisters of the Jade Blood sect." Another person said, "The cultivation world of the Cloud Province thanks the two junior brothers and junior sisters of the Jade Blood sect. The cultivation world of the Thunder Province thanks the two junior brothers and junior sisters of the Jade Blood sect." The Mist Province, wave after wave of cultivators bowed, rising and falling like the wind blowing through straw. Lu Yi and Hua Xi looked at each other and returned the bow together. They were solemn. Li Baxian stood to one side and watched. He knew that his junior brother and sister had basically become renowned throughout the world today. This was different from the incident on the Golden Light Summit. Back then, the cultivation world had worked together to protect the safety of the last spirit stream disciple of the Jade Blood sect in order to commemorate the merits of the Jade Blood sect in the past. That was a legacy left behind by the Jade Blood sect in the past. However, in this battle of Spirit Creek, Lu Yi and Hua Xi had relied on their own abilities to bring glory to their sect. Li Baxian's thoughts churned as he recalled a blurry and imposing figure. Eldest senior brother, oh eldest senior brother, if you're still in heaven, you should be able to rest easy. The banner of the Jade Blood sect has not fallen. Several decades later, someone had taken over this banner and raised it up, waving it in the sky above Grand Heaven Alliance. Junior brothers and junior sisters, if you want to go to the core region to train in the future, just give us a call and come to the Vitality Sect's encampment, Meng Si said. You can also come to the encampment of my Blue Cloud Palace. Everyone else spoke up as well, expressing that they could go to their encampments to train. Lu Yi naturally expressed his gratitude. Going to the core region to train was a matter of time. He was currently at the 6th order, so he could still hang around in the outer region for a while. However, once he reached the 7th order, he would have to consider entering the inner region. Once he reached the 9th order one day and switched to a heaven-grade secret art, he would have to go to the core region. With the grace of this battle at Spirit Stream, there would be many places he could choose to go to in the future. After a while, everyone dispersed one after another. Only then did Lu Yi have the time to ask about the doubts in his heart. Senior brother, what kind of spirit tree is this? The fruits on it are so fragrant. When he followed Li Baxian here, he noticed that there was a fruit tree here. There were 9 fruits on the tree, and the fragrance of the fruits could be smelled from 10 miles away. Lu Yi had long known that there were precious treasures in the Chess Sea. Many of them were unique to the Chess Sea and could not be found in the 9 states or Spirit Stream battlefields. However, he had not seen any special treasures since he entered the Chess Sea. Those good things had probably been taken away by others long ago. Until now, when he saw this fruit tree, it was obviously a treasure. This is a rest fruit, Li Baxian explained. It's a good thing. Feng Yuechan also said from the side, rest fruits are very rare and can only be found in the Chess Sea. Moreover, they don't appear every time. The last time the Chess Sea opened, there were no rest fruits. Its flesh has a very strong restorative effect. Take your fourth senior brother for example. If his spirit energy is exhausted, he can probably replenish it with just a bite of the fruit. It really is amazing. Lu Yi was surprised. Although his fourth senior brother was an 8th order heaven grade master, that was because one of his spirit apertures was broken and he could not break through. All his spirit apertures had been opened, so in terms of spirit energy reserves, he was no different from other 9th order heaven grade masters. Even a master like his fourth senior brother could completely restore his spirit energy by eating a bite of the fruit. If it was a 6th order master like himself, he would probably have the same effect by simply nibbling on the skin. When fighting against a strong enemy, the recovery of spirit energy was the key. If both sides were exhausted and one side suddenly ate this rest fruit, the other side would probably die of despair. This fruit was definitely a life-saving treasure at certain times. Li Baxin said, although the flesh is precious, the true value of this rest fruit is its core. Chapter 201. What do you mean? Lu Yi asked humbly. The role of the rest fruit's core is not fixed. Some fruit cores have this role, and some fruit cores have that role. There was a sect in the Tian continent that once obtained a rest fruit. After using that fruit core, it connected them to an unknown small world. That small world had a best-grade spiritual vein, which was filled with high-grade and best-grade spirit stones. Its value was immeasurable. Some cores can let people enter a very wonderful state of cultivation. In that state, whether it's cultivating spells or doing anything else, it's twice the result with half the effort. Some cores can be sold directly to the Tianji treasure house. The starting price is 100,000 merit points. Lu Yi was shocked by this number. 100,000 merit points, how many earthen core flames would that be? And this was just the starting number. It might be more than 100,000. Some cores can be placed in some magic arrays as the core, which can increase the power of the magic array by several times. There is a second-rank sect in the core circle that was fated to obtain such cores. Their magic array is the most powerful magic array among all the sects in the spirit stream battlefield. Even those first-rank sects can't compare to it. Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan talked about the various functions of the rest fruit. Lu Yi was surprised. This kind of treasure that could only be produced on the Chess Island was really extraordinary. This place was originally occupied by the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge. If there were no accidents, the Haotian Alliance would not be able to touch this rest fruit tree. However, the outstanding performance of the low-level cultivators this time made the Myriad Demons Ridge's wishful thinking fail. A few days ago, the cultivators of the Haotian Alliance, under the leadership of the powerhouses of the Core Circle, swept across the continent and killed countless enemies. They completely drove out the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge who occupied this place. The Myriad Demons Ridge was unwilling to let the treasure in their hands be snatched away. They had organized several attacks before, but the number of low-level and high-level cultivators on the Myriad Demons Ridge's side was far less than that of the Haotian Alliance. How could they succeed? Instead, they lost a lot of people. Now that Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan were also here, the Myriad Demons Ridge did not dare to act presumptuously. It was foreseeable that the following days would be very peaceful. The Haotian Alliance would wait here for the rest fruit to ripen and would not take the initiative to attack again. Even if the Myriad Demons Ridge was unwilling, they could only swallow their anger. The Battle of Spirit Stream Garrison was nearing its end, but before that, the rest fruit would be able to ripen. There are only 9 breath fruits. With so many sects present, how are we going to split them? Lu Yi voiced out the doubts in his heart. Everyone would want such a good item. However, low-level cultivators would not be able to compete for it. They couldn't just fight here and distribute it based on their strength. If they did that, it would only give the Myriad Devil Ridge an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Usually, auctions are used in such situations. Li Baxin had obviously experienced this kind of scene many times before, so he explained to Lu Yi, the Guardian Envoys will bid on behalf of their respective sects. The highest bidder will win, and the proceeds will be divided equally among the sects present. That's fine. Lu Yi nodded. Such a method was very fair. Presumably, those sects that were not competitive would also be willing to do so. No matter what, they would be able to get a share of the benefits. Time passed. Many people from the Grand Heaven Alliance were recuperating from their injuries, but there were even more who gathered in 2s and 3s to discuss matters. This kind of situation where the guardian envoys and deputy envoys of many sects were gathered together was very rare. The Battle of Spirit Stream Garrison was an opportunity. Almost all the sects that had stationed themselves on the Spirit Stream battlefield would participate. As a result, if there were any cooperation or important matters between sects, they could discuss it here. They could even form an alliance contract here. The guardian envoys were qualified to form an alliance contract. However, such an agreement was only limited to the Spirit Stream battlefield. If 2 sects wanted to truly form an alliance, then the respective sect master or sect master would have to come forward. Lu Yi and Hua Xi's side was also very lively. Many people who were familiar with each other ran over. At this moment, Lu Yi was playing with a small and exquisite mechanical creation. This thing was a round ball with a pair of small wings. It could fly, and there were 2 crystal eyes on the surface of the round ball. Lu Yushan was explaining the principles of this mechanical creation to him. This little thing didn't have much use. It could be regarded as a special spirit tool. After a cultivator refined it and released it, it could be used to observe some dangerous places. Brother Yi, if you are interested in this Tao, you can come to the Thousand Secrets Pavilion when you have time. Lu Yushan warmly invited him. They could be considered as friends who had gone through life and death together. Moreover, the Thousand Secrets Pavilion never had any intention of keeping their own inheritance to themselves. This was because Yanshi had always been a small sect. Every generation's pavilion master of the Thousand Secrets Pavilion had the responsibility of spreading the glory of this sect. Therefore, the doors of the Thousand Secrets Pavilion had always been open to the large sects of the Grand Heaven Alliance. Regardless of background, as long as one was interested in Yanshi, they could go to the Thousand Secrets Pavilion to further study. Therefore, although the Thousand Secrets Pavilion's rank wasn't high in the entire Grand Heaven Alliance, it was only at the 8th grade. However, its network was very wide. In the 9 continents, there were many sects in each continent that had formed an alliance contract with them. However, Yanshi required talent. Therefore, even though the Thousand Secrets Pavilion had been working hard for generations, the number of Yanshi was still very small. Especially after their cultivation reached a high level, the number of Yanshi fell sharply. The main reason was that Yanshi relied too heavily on external forces. When their cultivation wasn't high, they could use all kinds of mysterious mechanisms to create things to display strength far beyond their own. However, if this continued for a long time, it would definitely be detrimental to their own cultivation. It wasn't that the Thousand Secrets Pavilion didn't know about this drawback. However, they had no way to solve this problem. Yanshi was destined to spend a lot of energy on mechanisms. There was another beast-taming sect that had the same experience as Yanshi. There were also very few people in this sect. They focused on taming beasts. Since young, they had chosen a demonic beast as their life source. They ate and lived with the demonic beast. It could be said that they regarded the demonic beast as their life partner. Whether it was the Yanshi sect or the beast-taming sect, although they were a small group, they were definitely not to be trifled with. They were often able to defeat the strong. Their strength was related to the mechanisms and the demonic beast they tamed. It was impossible to judge their true ability from their cultivation base. Brother Lu. Lu Yi suddenly thought of something. Do you have a big guy over there that can allow cultivators to stay inside and work together to kill the enemy? It doesn't have to be a mechanical beast. A humanoid is also fine. And it's best if it's humanoid. You're talking about Yanshi? Lu Yi suddenly became interested. You really have it? I do have it, but I can't make it right now. I still need to continue cultivating. Lu Yushan smiled. When I can make it one day, I'll give it to you. Then I'll have to thank Brother Lu in advance. Lu Yi was looking forward to it. Yanshi? He didn't know if it was the same as what he had imagined. It was a good thing. This time, the defense of Ling Shi had opened his eyes. The more he learned, the more he found the cultivation world to be unfathomable. Although the gathering place was lively, they didn't let down their guard. Ghost cultivators concealed themselves 5 kilometers away from the breath fruit tree and monitored the surroundings to prevent people from the myriad Devil Ridge from launching a sneak attack. Although the possibility of that was low, they still had to be on guard. At a certain moment, the fruity fragrance suddenly disappeared. The cultivators who sensed it looked at the breath fruit tree and saw that the fruits had ripened. 9 blue fruits hung heavily on the branches. At the same time, the layer of barrier that had been lingering around the fruit tree also disappeared in an instant. The reason why the myriad Devil Ridge didn't destroy the breath fruit before they were defeated was mainly because the breath fruit tree had a natural protection. There was a transparent barrier around the fruit tree. Before the breath fruit ripened, this barrier would always exist. Not to mention destroying the breath fruit, they couldn't even get close to it. Otherwise, why would the myriad Devil Ridge leave such a good thing to the Grand Heaven Alliance when the situation wasn't good? If they couldn't get it, they would just destroy it. Everyone's eyes were fixed on it. Everyone's eyes were filled with desire. Although the breath fruit's core had many strange uses, every one of them had a great use. At the very least, it could be sold to the Tianji treasury for 100,000 merit points. It could be said that every breath fruit was priceless. Desire was desire, but no one went up to pick it. At this time, whoever dared to act rashly would definitely be killed immediately. Fellow Taoist Li, please. Someone suddenly spoke. Everyone's gaze fell on Li Baxian. Li Baxian smiled slightly and cupped his fists in all directions. Then I'll accept your offer. He leaped into the air and searched among the 9 fruits. He didn't know if there was any difference between them. Then he plucked one of them and took out a wooden box, putting it away carefully. Then he came in front of Lu Yi and handed the wooden box over. Little junior brother, junior sister Hua Si, this is yours. Lu Yi looked at him in shock. Li Baxian smiled. You and junior sister Hua Si have made such a great contribution this time. The major sects can't just thank you verbally. We've discussed it before, and you'll get a share of the breath fruit. Meng Si also looked at Lu Yi and nodded. This is what the Jade Blood sect deserves. Accept it. Lu Ye's gaze swept across and saw pairs of eyes full of smiles and praise. This sudden happiness surprised Lu Yi. He naturally wanted a good item like the breath fruit. However, his 4th senior brother had said that the ownership of the breath fruit would be decided through an auction. The cultivators here would represent their respective sects to bid, and the highest bidder would get the breath fruit. Currently, the Jade Blood sect's population was declining. Apart from a few small fries and a few spiritual mountains, there was nothing good in the sect. How could they have the capital to participate in such an auction? He originally thought that it would be good to share the profits from the auction with everyone. It should be a considerable gain. Who would have thought that such a good thing would fall into his lap? The 2 from the Jade Blood sect had made a great contribution to the defense of Spirit Creek. Without them, the current situation would not have happened. When the Chess Island completed its final fusion to form a continent, the high-level cultivators were hiding from the myriad Devil Ridge's pursuit. Even Li Baxian had brought a few dozen people to seek refuge with Lu Yi, let alone the others. It was the low-level cultivators who fought at the periphery that extinguished the myriad Devil Ridge's arrogance and turned the tables. Verbal thanks were no longer enough to express the gratitude of the major sects for such a contribution. A breath fruit was the real deal. Just as Meng Si had said, they deserved it. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.